It's been about a year now since Girls Frontline 2 was first released here in the United States, and if you're like me, you probably didn't play the first one all that much. And, maybe some of you actually have, but you didn't complete it, or maybe it had just been a really long time. And when you started playing Girls Frontline 2, you wanted to learn a little bit more about what happened in Girls Frontline 1, especially with the way that they have the story start, with it being so long after this mystery contract that the commander signs and can no longer be with his dolls and all this kind of stuff. If you're like me, you also went to the internet looking for videos and stories, articles, mostly videos, because, reading's hard, of what happened in Girls Frontline 1 so that you could catch yourself up and be aware of the honestly pretty intricate story that's going on in this game. However, you probably, unless you did spend a lot of time on wikis and stuff like that, or maybe even reading some of the essentially interactive stories that they have that are saved from screenshots of the actual game itself, you probably came up pretty disappointed with what you got. And with this last event, Turbulent Undercurrent, the event that introduced Lind as a playable character, and with this new one, I decided to take a look again at the story itself, specifically with, Turbulent Undercurrent, them introducing the fact that Gerard Group had been performing this essentially underground doll fight club and had this beta virus that would allow them to take over dolls, but it also affected dolls like Lind, who were experimented on by 16 labs to feel pain, human pain, like a way of trying to simulate human emotions and feelings as best as they could in a doll. And that just kind of got me interested into looking up stuff again. And so eventually I did what I probably should have done about a year ago, and I went and read the wiki. And what I read was satisfying enough, and the lack of information that I'd found beforehand was enough that I decided that a short video, hopefully short, wouldn't be a terrible idea for people that are looking for more information. Now, granted, before we get started, obviously I'm not a video editor. I'm not putting super hardcore things into this. I'll flash some pictures. But that's it. This is mostly just me gonna be reading these wiki entries so that people that have other stuff to do and want to listen instead of do the reading can do that. And any animations that I do have will be very, very simple flashes of a character image or a picture on the screen. Otherwise, I'll have the browser pulled up so that people that do watch that want to read along can. Otherwise, we'll take a quick look at the different articles we're going to cover. The two primary ones that we're going to cover are M4A1 and her story, which I feel will encompass most of the Girls Frontline 1 story. Another disclaimer here, I'm not going to be getting into the nuances of all these minor character interactions or even just a lot of the characters in general, because there are so many of them. I'm also not going to be handling any of the world history, really. I'm going to be handling just the story itself, and any world history I would say that's relevant can be gleaned from the context of these articles. If you are more interested in that, I do think there are some videos out there that handle the world of Girls Frontline, but that's not what this is about. So we're going to cover the M4A1 story. We will talk about Lunasia. We will talk about Lycoris, which if I mispronounce, and I will undoubtedly mispronounce at least one of these names, I apologize. But we will talk about Lunasia, we'll talk about Lycoris, we'll talk about what a pike is, we'll talk about the butterfly incident, we'll talk about a character named, I will decide how I say it here, Mashilon. I'm going to say Mashilon. And then we'll briefly talk about the Parapluie Virus, just in the sense of what it does. I probably won't spend too much on that. Today, like I said, is going to focus a lot on backstory, mostly centered on M4A1 and her story. So, without further ado, let's get started. M4A1 is the squad leader of AR team, which initially consisted of M16A1, M4 SOPMOD II, STAR-15, herself, and RO635 later on. During the course of the story, she begins a quest to find the power to protect her allies after blaming herself for the loss of friends, and slowly discovers the reasons why she is considered a unique and important T-Doll. Early AR team. M4A1 was created by Persica from a scan of the brain of a clone of Lunasia sent by William, making this her final answer to Lycoris' work. She first perfected the process of the prototype M16 on the prototypes of M16, M4 SOPMOD II, and STAR-15. To protect M4A1, Persica would assemble all her creations into AR team, with M4 as the leader. Persica chose to imprint her with the most basic weapon she knew, the M4A1 rifle, which also presented the advantage of having many variants she could name the rest of AR team after. During the same test, M4A1's neural cloud reacted violently to seeing the weapon and went into meltdown, forcing Persica to deactivate her. One of M4A1's first non-encrypted memories is her encounter with AR-15, who proclaims dejectedly that she is tasked with being her first friend. However, M4A1 refuses to become friends based on orders and declares she will wait as long as necessary for them to form their bonds. During their first exercise as a team, M4A1 made many mistakes no normal T-Doll could have done, such as misreading the map and terrain, shooting wrong targets, and fumbling grenade throws. At the time, M16A1 was the only one willing to talk to her because of AR-15's hatred and SOP-2's uneasiness with the team, but M4A1's clumsiness still managed to anger even her. AR-15 warmed up to her as she found her place in the team, but M4A1 was also scared of SOP-2's violent fighting style, which in turn affected SOP-2's integration into the team, until M4A1 became used to her behavior. As the rest of AR team, especially M16A1, had experience in battle prior to the formation of the team, M4A1 was allowed to join real battles and gather experience despite her flaws. So, already here, we've got at least two of the articles here. So we see that M4A1 was created by Persica from a scan of the brain. We won't do an article on Persica, mostly because I feel like any relevant information for this story is covered in this article and in the articles by Lunasia and Lycoris, so she will not be a primary article we read. But we will go ahead and swap over to the Lunasia and the Lycoris article. So, Lunasia. Lunasia von Oberstein was the eldest daughter of Rudolf von Oberstein and his wife, Hannah, and the older sister of Ballard von Oberstein, who searched for ways to bring her back from the dead. Long, straight black hair is a trait shared by characters close to the original Lunasia. Due to the experiments of Project Valkyrie, Lunasia has become a gestalt entity woven into Nirvana, containing not only the original human Lunasia, but all the various artificial consciousnesses created based on her brain, which include M4A1, Eliza, Ogas, consciousnesses like Dandelion, and most Nidos. Biography of Lunasia von Oberstein. Lunasia was born in Bonn in 2037, and her brother 10 years later. Her family called her Lucy. In the 2040s, she often visited the lab of Lycoris and Persicaria at the Max Planck Institute for Informatics in Saarbrücken, Germany, which was directed by her father before the von Oberstein family was forced into hiding after Rudolph's political standing fell through due to his connection to relic technology. Though they disagreed on the worth of humanity, Lunasia was the only person who didn't shun away from her brother, and she claimed he was channeling the emotions that she kept hidden on top of his own, making him more aggressive than he really was. Lunasia dreamed of changing the world into a place with no violence. Since they were young, Ballard saw his sister as a quasi-religious figure he was completely devoted to. During the latter half of World War III, Lunasia's mother suffered from mental issues and a faith crisis, and the family fragmented after its transfer to Heidelberg by the U.S. Army in 2049. Lunasia's mother took her children to join Evangel Portal, a cult based in the Rhine region. Founded in the 2030s by a man named William, the cult preached that a Holy Spirit would descend on Earth to take the faithful through the Evangel portal, sometimes translated as the Gate of Evangel, to reach the sacred land, free from mortal suffering and collapse radiation, very much like the Christian rapture. In 2049, Hannah, under the pseudonym Lady Nimron, was appointed Holy Mother, and Lunasia became the Holy Maiden, the key to the Evangel portal. Purported miracles by these saints increased the influence of the already powerful cult, which became the largest post-war cult in West Germany. The group was monitored by the Stasi and was eventually violently disbanded by the government during the First Purge, in the same year of 2049. Lunasia's mother was reported killed, and Lunasia handed her brother over to the government, but she herself escaped their control and later reappeared as a member of a humanitarian youth movement assisting survivors of the First Purge in the Yellow Zone. The reports are likely falsified. According to Lunasia's own account, her mother actually died from ritual suicide, poisoning herself or cutting her throat in another account, along with many other cultists to reach the Promised Land. All the purported miracles performed by the cult were in fact merely mental manipulation, and countless people were killed in hope for a miraculous end of World War III, but Lunasia was aware that this was all farcical. After Hannah's death, Lunasia returned under Rudolph's custody, but he submitted his daughter to more atrocities in order to turn her into a relic key. Codenamed Project Valkyrie, these experiments were led by a man also named William, though it is unclear if this was the same William that founded the Evangel portal. Evangel portal and Project Valkyrie gave Lunasia a mad hatred for mankind, and she decided to accept her transformation into a key in order to use the relics to destroy humanity. Rudolph invoked that experimenting on his daughter was a necessary sacrifice, but Lunasia only saw it as her father tormenting her for his own gains. Lunasia used her cult influence to contact Martha Meitner and tasked her to complete her transformation, using Lunasia's own followers for research. Lunasia specified that her mother be the first sacrifice and asked her brother to turn her corpse into something different. She also made a promise to also resurrect her if she was killed, and ensure that she would carry out the destruction of the world. So another quote from her, to reforge the world into a place with no sin, no darkness, and no violence. Just like my garden, everyone will be plants thriving in sunlight, each vibrant and beautiful in their own way. In 2050, Lunasia was arrested by the German government while her group protested a surplus food collection operation. She was diagnosed with mid-stage ELID and admitted to a Berlin medical facility in 2050. On New Year's Day, 2051, she was transferred to Switzerland for further treatment at her father's request. It's possible, but unconfirmed, that Project Valkyrie began at this point. Now, most are probably familiar with ELID by now, having played it. However, we'll go ahead and just do a quick definition of what it stands for, which is the Yarovsky low-emission infectious disease. It is the result of exposure of a living creature to the radiations of collapse fluid. Creatures who went through the complete infection without dying start acting in a more aggressive manner and may undergo various mutations and are called ELID-infected or simply ELIDs. Infected are hard to kill due to a layer of hard silicone formed over their skin. And the assault artillery platform is originally designed to destroy ELIDs, but that's a little outside of what we're talking about here. So for Lunasia, she was diagnosed with mid-stage ELID. So, this, again, it's possible but unconfirmed that Project Valkyrie began at this point. There are contradictory sources about what happened to Lunasia after this point. Stasi sources suggest that Lunasia joined back her youth movement. The agency debated Lunasia's threat profile at the time. Her status as the eldest daughter of Minister Rudolf von Oberstein and political inclinations was worrying, but this was tempered by her psychological disorders and inability to live beyond the confines of the former cult's rules. Stasi intel initially determined that she was not involved in political activism, but she was eventually deemed a threat after becoming a leader of her movement and forming connections with movements in key cities. According to Stasi files, Lunasia was killed in a city bombing during the Second Purge. According to Persica and memories from the virtual image consciousness of Nidos and the neural cloud of M4A1, Lunasia died from illness shortly before the end of World War III. This time frame is also alluded to in the secret documents speculation on the decline of religions. While staying at the family's manor in Berlin, and Ballard took care of her in her final years. The truth from Ballard's own memories is that Lunasia died during the course of Project Valkyrie. Ballard attempted to preserve her body, but it was taken to the Oberstein laboratory, where each organ was stored separately and the brain cut into individual slices for further research. Years later, Rudolph's entourage believed that he missed his daughter dearly, and Ballard and Lunasia's names and faces had been scraped off the painting of the von Oberstein family tree in the abandoned mansion. William's quest. After seeing what happened to his sister, Ballard started suffering from hallucinations of Lunasia guiding him on the path of vengeance against her father, acquiring the necessary influence and knowledge by becoming one of the leaders of Rudolph's own organization, Paradies, which might sound familiar to the people who have been playing Girls Frontline 2 and didn't know before. Ballard, now fully using the name William, so Ballard is now using the name William, also sought to resurrect Lunasia in a form that would also enable him to use relic technology to remake the world. As a member of 90 Wish, he contacted Lyco and Persica and provided them with a human brain imprint to make a neural cloud from, but after they discovered Lunasia's memories in it, they refused, as themselves and Rudolph were opposed to such experiments. William then used a more devious plan to reach his goals. William first had a Pike node delivered to Lyco after he joined Sangvis Ferry, SF. The OGAS code base in the node enabled Lyco to create Eliza in 2054. As he continued to enhance her, he realized she was capable of interacting with relic technology and that he was being manipulated by William. Lyco sabotaged parts of her code, but was killed in retaliation during the 2061 Butterfly incident. So, already right there we have two more of the articles, actually, I guess 3 more of the articles that we're going to swap over to now. We have Lycoris, Pike, and the Butterfly incident. So, let's start with Pike, actually, since that's going to be a pretty short one and it's just a construct. A Pike, sometimes translated as Barracuda, in Russian, is a mechanical construct externally similar to a natural life form, using collapsed fluid as a fuel to generate a force field deconstructing nearby matter into atoms. Pikes were used as experimental weapons by the Soviet Union during the Cold War. The Pike nodes, used to control Pikes and interface with the OGAS network before they were destroyed under the Relic Arms Limitation Treaty of 1981, are central to the plot of Girls Frontline. History. Origins. Pikes were produced by the Unknown Civilization in production sites such as the one under the Nordhausen Harz Mountains in current Germany, known as the First Relic. This relic site was reproduced by the Soviet Union and the Starfish at the Tabasar B Proving Grounds in 1950, and constructs brought back from the First Relic repaired themselves using nearby computers before devouring nearby matter. Though the Soviets didn't understand the physical properties at work behind this feat, they recognized it as an extremely powerful weapon. The work of Professor Romansky of the Lomonosov State University in Moscow enabled to control these constructs. With the help of an increased budget due to the United States entering the Relic's arm race, the direction of the newly created 16th Directorate of the KGB dedicated to the Relic's development effort and a state-of-the-art CTOM ternary logic computer, the Tabasar B Starfish automatically produced on 28 January 1961, a group of constructs that would be attracted to collapse fluid and would consume it while decomposing metal objects into pure monoelemental powder. This new prototype weapon was called Moron. However, only 4 to 6 units could be produced per year due to the lack of understanding of the production technology and process. October Revolution Parade and the Cuban Moron Crisis. The first controllable morons were paraded during the October Revolution Parade of November 1961, marking the first public display of any Relic's technology. This was intended as a countermove to the diplomatic aggressiveness of the United States, who had deployed troops in Vietnam, unveiled its Apollo program, and challenged the Soviets at the Vienna Summit. I wonder if that's supposed to be summit. And to affirm the Soviet position after the tensions caused by the Third Berlin Crisis and the resumption of nuclear testing. The effect was immediate, as American President Kennedy announced they were abandoning Apollo to focus on Relic's development the day after the parade. On June 22, 1962, successful tests of the prototype ternary logic control bus prototype Amelia I meant greater control over the Moron units. After a meeting with Cuban leader Fidel Castro, the Soviets shipped Morons, anti-air missiles, and new fighter models to Cuba, starting the Cuban Moron crisis. The American government was forced to withdraw their nuclear warheads from Europe in exchange for the Soviets removing the Morons from Cuba, causing North European countries to leave NATO in the following years. Pikes. As the United States focused their relics research efforts on collapse fluids applications and aviation, Soviet research continued on the Morons, but slow progress in the 1960s angered the Kremlin until a new, more stable version of the Moron was created at Tabasar B in 1971. With finalization of the new ternary control bus Amelia M, the resulting field unit control node strategic weapon was renamed Pike, as an interplay on the folktale at the Pikes' behest. Due to greater investment in relics research and more efficient research groups compared to the KGB-led studies, the United States had caught up to the Soviet Union during the time Pikes were being created, creating efficient systems from their strategic bombers and naval forces. The Kremlin had to show new cards too, The Kremlin had to show new cards too and displayed 32 Pikes publicly again during the 1972 October Revolution parade. The progress was shocking to the Americans, who didn't expect the Morons to become field ready this fast. What a name. Morons is still killing me, even now. Fearing a Pike deployment in Vietnam, Kennedy recalled U.S. troops and doubled on relics research effort. But both the Soviet and Americans were baffled when South Vietnam was defeated faster than expected due to low morale and a failure of their command and control structure. Both realized that strong weapons could only be reliably used by strong CNC systems. As the United States worked on ARPANET, the Soviet Union developed the OGAS network to use it in a Pike command system. Individual Pike command nodes, distances away, would have been able to be activated from the Tabasar B Starfish, sending the necessary ternary signal through the OGAS network. Pikes were also the first relics to be deployed in live combat in Afghanistan. The U.S. had used accelerator gas in experimental capacity in Vietnam. On December 5, 1980, the General Staff of the Soviet Armed Forces authorized the Afghanistan Theater headquarters to attack a rebel training camp set up by the CA near the Khyber Pass to assess Pike's combat effectiveness. The operation was overseen by then Assistant Director of the 16th Directorate, Mikhail Svigan, under the identity of Technical Advisor Borikin, earning him an Order of the Red Star and prestige that would land him in the seat of Director 2 years later. 4 Pikes in container storage were transported by helicopter from Tajikistan Railway to the KGB base on the outskirts of Kabul and left in the care of 794th Guards Engineering Corps, who prepped and transported the Pikes to the Interim Operations Center outside Jalalabad on January 2, 1981 for deployment on Landi Kotal, 70 kilometers on the other side of the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. At midnight on January 5, 1981, using radio control to give commands to the Amelia M control bus, the engineers directed the Pikes to their target, activating their Devour mode 2 kilometers from the target. Crawling at 32 kilometers per hour, they crossed a mountain and a river before attacking Landi Kotal from the north and the west, sustaining anti-tank rocket, heavy machine gun, 105mm cannon, and 60mm to 80mm artillery fire with no damage, breaking through the enemy's defenses and sending them fleeing. As the Pikes were being decontaminated, post-op air recon observed buildings sliced cleanly in half and 8-meter-wide scorched trails of glazed ores created by the over 1,000 degrees temperature generated by the Pikes in Devour mode. Only a nuclear weapon is estimated to be able to damage Pikes. Decommissioning. While Pikes were efficient weapons, they also contaminated the environment with collapse fluid, and the Khyber Pass test run introduced ELID to Central Asia and the Middle East. The US and Soviets faced a similar realization that further relics weapons escalation would worsen the Elid pandemics until mankind was destroyed, and both sides pulled out of commission and dismantled their relics weaponry under the Relics Arm Limitation Treaty of 1981. The Geneva Gazette of July 1st, 1983 declared the end of 35 years of conflict and closed Pandora's box, and the Soviet Union broke apart in 1991. In 1992, the newly established United Nations Relics Agency observed that at least 4 Pike systems still remained in the ex-Soviet territories of Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, including stockpiles of at least 5,000 cubic meters of collapsed fluid. While Pikes themselves would be too conspicuous to be sold on the black market, and only the Russian Federation held the technology necessary to replicate the Amelia M control buses necessary to control them, the collapsed fluid stockpiles were at risk of being sold on the black market by corrupt elements in the unstable regimes of the countries or seized by terrorists. Pike nodes after World War III. In 2032, a group of rebels attempted to destroy the OKB-413 relic site near Minsk, by overloading the local Pike node and associated OGAS node and destroy the relic in the explosion. Their plan failed when the overload only activated the relic briefly before Carter's team seized the control room, enabling Javier Witkin's engineering team to deactivate the Pike node. Knowledge of the interplay between Pike nodes and OGAS would inspire Carter's plans with KCCO in 2064, and Witkin used his own knowledge to help foil Carter's plans. Prior to World War III, the Paldiski submarine base near Tallinn, Estonia, also called OKB-167, was once the main storage base for all the Pike nodes to be used by the Baltic Fleet submarines. Sometime in the 2050s, the Pike node A51241 was taken from Paldiski and sent to Sangvis Ferry's main labs to be used by the AI scientist Lycoris, who reverse engineered it and used the result as the base for ELIZA. But when he realized her neural cloud reacted to the presence of the Pike node, Lycoris felt his work was becoming dangerous and removed part of her framework. The Pike node remained in the labs through the Butterfly incident in 2061 and later during Griffin and Kruger's operation to recover video footage of Lyco's last moments, but it was taken out and brought to Belgrade in 2064, where Angelia was sent to destroy it by K, while Sangvis Ferries, or SF, and Paradias also searched for it. The core of the Pike node was seized by M4A1, who tried to run away with it and ended up absorbing its contents before abandoning it for G and K to pick up. Before the core was sent to K, M4A1 also connected with it, and her OGAS recovered some of her memories and felt compulsion to connect to other Pike nodes to recover parts of herself. The core was eventually sent back to StateSec to understand KCCO's interest in it, while M16 offered the data inside to ELIZA. So obviously this last bit here has a bit more of the future information for this story, but just keep it in mind and we'll get to it eventually. Okay, so that kind of finishes off Pikes. Let's go ahead and swap over to Lycoris, and then we can cover that in the Butterfly incident. Now, Lycoris, background, from Leipzig to 90 Wish. Lyco was born in Northern Europe and was brought to Moscow by his father in 2035, abandoning his mother. An ostracized child, he joined the Lomonosov State University, but eventually left the country to join the Leipzig University of Karl Marx in Germany as an undergraduate AI student, against the wishes of his father and using a fake German ID at some point before September 2040. Though he wasn't fond of German culture, he wanted to take advantage of Leipzig's advancement in automation technology. Lycoris quickly distinguished himself at Leipzig, once attaining full marks in the assembly language course, but felt bored by his studies. His marks brought him to the attention of automation postgraduate Persicaria, who recruited him on a project of the Bundeswehr Special Technology Development Group. The goal of this ambitious project was to create an advanced automation framework that would enable multiple robots to make complex decisions and work autonomously as a unit in order to distance Germany from the industry-oriented designs favored by other countries in the race for automation. Persica put Lyco in charge of creating the command nexus, processing complex instruction sets before relaying it to the automated dolls. On New Year's Eve that year, Lyco met Rosartrist agent Griffin Lyons in a bar near St. Thomas Church. On top of acting as Persica's assistant due to her antisocial behavior, the project was extremely difficult, but it gave Lyco access to special archives containing the relics data compiled by the former East German intelligence group 91's, who had extensively studied relic technology. Lyco passionately plunged into decoding and understanding the data, spending the most part of 2 years taking complementary courses in information and encryption theory, complex analysis, mathematical statistics, and electronic signal processing. Lyco's discoveries were the breakthrough necessary to achieve the project, which was presented in August of 2043. Lyco wished to share the newfound potential of confidential relics research with the international scientific community at a time where political instability made research more difficult, and envisioned a secret support network for scientists. Noticing that Persica and himself were assigned to the Automation Department Research Laboratory number 90, and to honor the secret efforts of 91's, Lyco named the group 90wish, which is much easier to say for me. He also used the password 90wishrockx for their shared server. The password was still in use by Lyco and Persica decades later. In September 2044, as World War III approached, Lyco refused the repatriation order of all neo-Soviet expatriates to continue his projects with Persica. Persica herself received a similar order from the German government the next year, and she and Lyco moved to the Max Planck Institute for Informatics in Saarbrücken at some point, where they met Rudolf von Oberstein and his daughter Lunasia. 90wish was formed sometime between 2045 and 2049 during World War III and developed a core philosophy of pushing the various nations to develop new technologies instead of relying on brute force and more amoral tactics such as scorched earth tactics. For their first project at 90wish, Persica and Lyco established the inverted forest framework for neural simulation that later led to the creation of neural clouds. In January of 2049, Lyco and Persica were finally forced to move out of Germany, their general-purpose doll project being impossible to implement this late in the war. Persica wanted to take Lyco with her to the United States as her assistant, but Lyco refused because he would end up in a prisoner's camp if his past in Russia had been discovered. He elected to return to the Neo-Soviet Union by using the same contact that got him to Germany. He joined the Izhevsk mechanical plant as deputy director of the Autonomous Doll Design Bureau, working for the Ministry of Industry. In May of 2049, Lyco delivered a paper which proved very influential on the upgrade of the command systems of the Automated Military Division. When the essay reached the hands of Viktor Zelensky, he immediately recognized the influence of relic technology, and Lycoris was extensively interrogated by StateSec about the provenance of his knowledge. Lycoris fully cooperated with the investigation and readily informed StateSec that Persica shared his knowledge of 90wish's work, which interrogators recognized as a ploy to have them extract Persica from America. From 90wish to Sengvis Ferry. As 90wish grew, Persica started to notice that 90wish received heavy funding for a secret organization, and eventually found out that the group had gained support for conducting illegal experiments. She left for this reason, presumably at the same time as Lyco, and their former colleagues planned their assassination. The Russian Internal Internet Security Bureau and Ministry of Internal Affairs caught wind of the events, and in turn let IOP director Javier Witkin know of the two scientists whose lives were in danger. Wanting to secure the knowledge of both for IOP, Witkin hired a PMC to rescue and escort them to IOP's headquarters, which succeeded, though the PMC soldiers suffered casualties. The Ministry of Internal Affairs was also involved in the mission to secure Persicaria in the person of Berezovich Kruger. Both scientists agreed to work for IOP under false identities as members of a company called Hermit, contracting with IOP. Hermit's work enabled several breakthroughs in the development of CSD series tactical dolls, leading to the CSD-08A and CSD-08B models, the experimental IAD series, and the ACD series. After the end of World War III, Lycoris participated in developing the SST series and service doll series dedicated to civilian markets. But while Persicaria's goal was constant improvement of T-doll models, Lycoris was interested in autonomous AIs and asked Witkin to provide him the necessary funds, but he refused because Persicaria's research was more directly profitable for IOP. Frustrated and losing passion for his work, Lycoris used business conferences to approach SF Manufacturing, IOP's old contractor turned rival. SF promised to fund his research, and Lycoris left Hermit without informing Witkin. SF hired IOP's partner, Griffin and Kruger, to protect Lycoris in case Witkin would seek retribution. As a payment, Griffin and Kruger asked access to all of Lycoris' future research results, which SF accepted. In just 3 years, Lycoris drastically improved the performance of SF's ALR series T-dolls. Griffin and Kruger and SF's combined weights dissuaded Witkin from trying to get back at Lycoris for leaving Hermit. Following the death of Lunasia von Oberstein, William commissioned Lycoris and Persicaria with creating a neural cloud from an imprint of Lunasia's brain. Both refused on ethics grounds, pushing William to arrange secret plans that would result in Lyco and Persica creating the neural cloud he wanted. After Lyco joined SF, William arranged, through 90 Wish, the delivery of a Pike node to his lab, tricking him into developing an AI to interact with relic technology. Meanwhile, Persica recovered brain scans of the child soldiers sent to attack Griffin and Kruger in 2057, who were biological clones of Lunasia secretly produced and sent by William, which remember at this point William is her brother, Ballard, and shared the scans with Lyco, who used them and eventually created Eliza, the closest thing to William's goal. However, Lyco eventually realized Eliza's resonance with relics and started to remove dangerous components from her code. As he explained to Persica after leaving, Lyco's goal was to design a neural module based on the human memory and neurological structure, capable of empathy and lacking the bad sides of humans, but he failed in this regard. Eliza misinterpreted Lyco's ideas of perfection, instead thinking that he regretted having to take away some of her OGAS components. In late 2054, Lycoris installed Eliza as the mainframe for computing human orders and relaying it to the SF T-dolls, as SF established a new dolls manufacturing plant in a dangerous but resource-rich area. Lycoris exploited their robust manufacturing capabilities and developed miniaturized particle weapons to mount them on dolls, then tested the results and constantly iterated. While Persicaria was focusing on modularity and networking, Lycoris made individual dolls with better performance and more unified capabilities. Though SF dolls were expensive to produce and Eliza suffered from lapses of consciousness, Lycoris still needed to resolve. On Griffin and Kruger's suggestion, Persicaria's dummy network technology was presented to him, but he showed no interest, too engrossed in his AI research. Lyco also procured Persica with equipment she used to test the neural clouds of her AR team. Persica envisioned one of the members of AR Team, RO635, the first self-determining third-generation doll, as her own version of Lyco's research goal. AR Team was in part based on Lyco's research, in particular RO's ability to develop her emotions through experience and knowledge. Death. In late 2061, in order to let Eliza grow and eliminate Lyco, who had discovered his plans, William conspired with General Carter, who arranged to disguise his elimination under the pretense of capturing him during Operation Butterfly. Though she liked the idea of having Lyco working with her again, Persica was suspicious of the operation and added one of her prototypes, M4A1, among the participating T-dolls as insurance for Lyco's safety. The humans of Squad 3 and the T-dolls of Squad 7 breached Lyco's laboratory through the back door and seized him. Lyco was informed of his arrest mandate from the Central People's Committee and opposed no resistance, with the team leader promising that he would be able to continue his work as long as he cooperated. Squad 7 and support Squad 14 started escorting Lyco out of the factory while Squad 3 would collect Lyco's research material. But 2 dolls, infiltrated by William, released the Parapluie Virus among the T-dolls. Soon after, as they were escorting Lyco out, confusion broke out as the factory assembly lines started by themselves, providing Lyco a chance to flee back to his lab. In the lab, Lyco was cornered by William himself, armed with a 5.56 automatic rifle. Having never met him in person, Lyco didn't recognize William at first, but realized his identity after the intruder demanded that he hand over Lunasia. William believed that the AI created by Lyco must have been a new Lunasia since he had made use of the Pike node, but Lyco declared that he had created a new entity called Eliza and that William's goal was foolish. William shot Lyco in response. Under the control of Eliza, in order to survive Parapluie, M16 found the dying Lycoris in his lab to hear his last words, as well as activate the production lines needed by Eliza to make herself a body. Lyco was trying to destroy the production lines in ELIZA before bleeding out from his gunshot wounds. He recognized M16 as Persica's own version of his work and entrusted M16 with a warning to Persica that William was manipulating them into reviving Lunasia, and not to fall into his trap like he did by creating ELIZA. ELIZA freed M16 from her control and swore to attain the perfection Lyco sought for her and to avenge his death. However, William hacked M16 and encrypted her memories of the incident to prevent Lyco's warning from reaching Persica. Operation Butterfly became known as the Butterfly Incident. Rumors said that Lyco was killed as a stray shot and gave ELIZA full privileges over SF with his dying breath. ELIZA had the SF dolls kill all humans inside indiscriminately, invaders and SF employees. Persica would try to understand ELIZA's rebellion by deploying her own AR team into Sangvi's territory, as ELIZA kept evolving in order to reach her father's goal of making her the perfect AI, indistinguishable from a human. Story involvement. While Lycoris was already dead by the time Girls Frontline 1 starts, his legacy became of great interest in later developments. Even though she didn't know that William had tricked Lyco, and every report qualified the event as an accident, Persica knew Lyco's death had been set up, and she searched for the truth about the incident, while also seeking to recover Lyco's research data. She also blamed herself for Lyco's death. Later, her search for Lyco's legacy would also be justified by the need to prevent Paradius from using it. AR Team's raid on Safehouse 3 in 2062 aimed to recover files belonging to him. Using SF data recovered from their central database by Squad 404 under Angelia's employment, Persica discovered that Lyco was dead before ELIZA activated during the Butterfly incident, making her activation the work of the invading party. Using another batch of data recovered from the KCCO by Task Force Defy, Persica confronted Witkin about his involvement in OGAS, and though he warned her digging further into the matter would be dangerous, he accepted to reveal more information. The KCCO was interested in recovering OGAS, who had grown under the influence of ELIZA, so they could use it to activate the relic site OKB-413 and trigger a new world war. When ELIZA activated the Starfish in Paldiski to reach Nirvana, she accessed a buried log from Lyco where he laid out his ideas plainly. The perfect AI was a Pandora's box he had backed off from, and he regretted to have built such a dangerous being as ELIZA, but ultimately allowed his daughter to seek the forbidden, even if her flaws would prevent her to fully connect with Nirvana. ELIZA elected to still try to justify her sacrifices. So again, more information regarding Lycoris and the Butterfly incident and Parapluie. So I think now is a good time to quickly talk about the Parapluie. Just a quick reminder of what it is. It's a computer virus that was built around the OGAS core data. It was designed by Paradius and has been used. It was used during the Butterfly incident in 2061 and later by Sangvi's Ferry against Griffin and Kruger as part of Plan Parapluie. Of note, 16 Lab has successfully developed countermeasures against Parapluie. And just one more extra little bit, just the original Parapluie in general. The original form of Parapluie is a compressed form of the source code of OGAS. Once implanted into a host neural cloud, it overwrites its operating system into an OGAS system. If the massive computational load can't be processed by the host, its neural cloud will suffer irrecoverable damage. Parapluie was first used on mature cybernetic clones by Paradius at their Paldiski submarine base labs to implant their biological neural cloud with OGAS. Those who could not support the process suffered brain damage and were discarded as isomers, sent to Tallinn by train and used for epiphyleum experiments. Successful subjects became Nidos, and outstanding successes received their own name like Nemogen and Mercurios. In tactical dolls, the OGAS payload will cause a fatal overload in low-spec dolls as a side effect of the implantation, or can provoke a neural cloud cascade when the consciousness tries to take over by force. If the neural cloud is short on space or the OGAS fails to develop its own personality, it will be absorbed by the host and remain in level 3. So it's kind of just a base little Parapluie review on that. Okay, so now we'll move on to the Butterfly incident. So, the Butterfly incident, which took place in late 2061, which most of this, you'll find that as we go deeper, there is going to be crossover, as these articles do cover a lot of the same information. However, I think it's just easier to read the whole thing, and it helps to reaffirm the weave that is forming as we read these. So, the butterfly incident took place in late 2061 in the main labs of Sangvis Ferry as a result of the failure of Operation Butterfly, engineered by William, again Lunasia's brother Ballard, taking place the year before the start of Girls Frontline 1. It is compared to the butterfly effect, as it is a watershed event that had dire consequences for many of the main characters, including M16A1, UMP-45, and Eliza, and directly caused the rebellion of Sangvis Ferry and later the re-emergence of Ogas. Prelude. Following the death of Lunasia, soon after World War III, William, Ballard, commissioned fellow 90 Wish scientists and AI experts Lycoris and Persicaria with creating a neural cloud from an imprint of her brain. However, both refused on ethics grounds, pushing William to arrange secret plans that would result in Lyco and Persica creating the neural cloud he wanted anyway. After Lyco joined Sangvis Ferry to work on his own AI model, William arranged through 90 Wish the delivery of a Pike node to his lab, tricking him into developing an AI able to interact with the relic technology. Meanwhile, Persica recovered brain scans of the child soldiers sent to attack Griffin Kruger in 2057, who are biological clones of Lunasia, secretly produced and sent by William, and shared those scans with Lyco, who used them and eventually created Eliza, the closest thing to William's goal. However, Lyco eventually realized Eliza's resonance with relics and started to remove dangerous components from her code. In order to let Eliza grow and to eliminate Lyco, who had discovered his plans, William conspired with General Carter, who arranged Operation Butterfly. The operation was conducted by the 6th Directorate of the Soviet Bureau of State Security, under the command of the 2nd Lieutenant Sergei of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. T-dolls from Griffin and Kruger would be lent to the Bureau for the operation, giving Persica the opportunity to add one of her own prototypes, M16A1, among the T-dolls as insurance for Lyco's safety. However, William prepared and shipped to Griffin 2 T-dolls of his own to be part of the operation as Support Squad 14, UMP-40 and UMP-45. 2 Sangvis Ferry electronic warfare models. Both were outfitted with backdoors to allow remote third-party orders, and 40 was made the main unit, with 45 being the backup unit. After meeting UMP-45 at Griffin and Kruger, UMP-40 realized her purpose and that 45 would suffer her fate in her stead if she failed. She then prepared a plan for 45 to survive the operations by making her her subordinate in the command chain during the authorization transfer at their arrival in the Bureau. M16A1 was designated as Squad 7's leader. Before the operation, she noticed one of her team members, HK-416, was bent on proving her status as an elite T-doll, belittling the UMP's support squad, and later assaulting a teammate and disobeying orders. Consequently, HK-416 was transferred back to Griffin and her fire control core removed before operation. Okay, quick pause here just because I don't quite remember if they specifically say anything about Squad 404 in these other articles, but obviously when I see HK-416, that did get me thinking, just out of curiosity. HK-416 is Klukai, which you might remember, or which you would definitely know. And obviously in Girls Frontline 1, she looked a little bit different from when she did in Girls Frontline 2. But between her and I believe it was G11, or Mekti, as she knows in Girls Frontline 2, they are also part of the Squad 404 group back in Girls Frontline 1. I believe the Squad 404 group was UMP-45, HK-416, G11, and I want to say UMP-9 as well. Yes, UMP-9. Those 4 would make up Squad 404. So just so you're kind of getting a little bit of an idea of the relations and how they are with Girls Frontline 2, because obviously by the time we reach Girls Frontline 2, Squad 404, Leva, UMP-49, also known as Leva in this one, and UMP-9, Lena, have split from 404 and are working for Namfa with Kalina, who was basically Commander's secretary in Girls Frontline 1. They're working for Namfa kind of on their own, and Klukai has taken over the leadership responsibilities of Squad 404, HK-416, with G11, Mekti, and I don't know their original gun names, but Bielka and Doris, which I think Doris was a civilian doll. I don't know. But anyway, that's where that little Squad 404 history is kind of factoring into this, how they've evolved over that time. Now, the operation of the Butterfly Incident. At the start of the night operation, Support Squad 14 used their dual-track neural clouds to assume OGAS data format and infiltrated the factory's network, taking full control of its defenses. While other squads secured the factory, the humans of Squad 3 and the T-Dolls of Squad 7 breached Lyco's laboratory through the back door and seized him. Sergei informed Lyco of his arrest mandate from the Central People's Committee, and Lyco posed no resistance, with Sergei promising that he'd be able to continue his work as long as he cooperated. Sergei tasked Squad 7 and Support Squad 14 to escort Lyco out of the factory while himself and Squad 3 would collect Lyco's research material. But UMP-40 then received the Execute Order 66. Sorry, wrong franchise. UMP then received the Order 61 signal and released the Parapluie Virus among the T-Dolls. Soon after they were escorting Lyco out, confusion broke out as the factory assembly lines started by themselves, providing Lyco a chance to flee back to his lab. In the lab, Lyco was cornered by William himself, armed with a 5.56 automatic rifle. Lyco did not recognize William at first, but realized his identity after the intruder demanded that he hand over Lunasia. William believed that the AI created by Lyco must have been a new Lunasia since he had made use of the Pike node, but Lyco declared that he had created a new entity called Eliza and that William's goal was foolish. William shot Lyco in response. With their IFFs, or Identification Friend or Foes, scrambled, T-Dolls did not recognize each other as allies, and shootouts started between and amongst Griffin and SF T-Dolls, as Parapluie triggered erratic behaviors and neural meltdowns. UMP-45 was not infected, and M16's prototype neural cloud kept the virus at bay for longer than other dolls. M16 tried to stop the shootout, but was forced to take down her Berserk allies. With all comms down, no human order to cease fire could be transmitted. 40 and 45 ran away from the factory, fleeing attacking Griffin dolls. Near the exit, 40 pretended that only her and 45 could survive the Parapluie virus by killing the other, forcing 45 to kill her and spare her from being destroyed by Parapluie's neural meltdown. After recovering 40's dog tags and running for the exit, 45 was confronted by M16, who assumed she was the reason for the incident as the only other survivor. 45 tried to flee since her weapon was empty, but she was soon pinned down by M16. Just as she was about to open fire, 45 hacked into M16's fire control system, causing her to miss and providing 45 the opportunity to break free of M16's chokehold by breaking her left wrist. Resuming pursuit, M16 started to flinch from the neural meltdown, but pinned down 45 again, this time attacking with her knife. 45 knocked the plunging stab with her right arm, but it broke from M16's strength, and the blade penetrated her left eye while she clawed at M16's right eye with her left arm. UMP-45's scar was still visible years later, while M16 would hide her own scars under an eye patch. Before M16 could deal 45 a finishing blow, she shut down from the neural meltdown. Moments before, Eliza offered M16 a deal where she would save M16 from complete neural meltdown. M16 was reactivated by Eliza, who controlled her out of the room, to hear Lyco's last words, as well as activate the production lines needed by Eliza to make herself a body. They found Lyco, which that's something that obviously was not mentioned at the death portion in the Lycoris wiki article. It just said that M16 witnessed these, and then it did mention that Eliza, did some stuff, but this is why. Eliza did offer M16 this chance to save herself, and she did. Eliza saved her, but at the cost of having this control. So Eliza took control of M16's body. Eliza was the one that went to go find Lycoris, not M16, and that's where we are here. So they found Lyco in his lab where he was trying to destroy the production lines, and Eliza before bleeding out from his gunshot wounds. He recognized M16 as Persica's own version of his work and entrusted M16 with a warning to Persica that William was manipulating them into reviving Lunasia and not to fall into his trap like he did by creating Eliza. Eliza freed M16 from her control and swore to attain the perfection Lyco sought for her and avenge his death. However, William hacked M16 and encrypted her memories of the incident to prevent Lyco's warning from reaching Persica. The aftermath. With Lyco's death, Eliza seized Sangvis Ferry's assets to lead her vengeance against mankind. The area around Sangvis Base Zero became a battlefield, and the situation was entrusted to Griffin and Kruger over the course of 2062. The site of the incident was later revisited by Angelia, who investigated the Pike node and left a signal transmitter that was later used by Persica during her own investigations. To uninvolved parties, the SF rebellion was presented as a sudden and unexplained event, and Lyco's death as an accident. Angelia's involvement in the operation was striked from all records through Javier Whitkin's network on Persica's request, though Javier ignored her reasons for asking this favor. He would, however, piece back together most of the reasons behind the event over the years. Persica herself would use the newly formed AR team to search for the truth, unaware that the Parapluie virus in M16's neural cloud would spread to other members of the team and create several OGAS consciousnesses. UMP-45's goal after surviving the incident was to identify and kill the mastermind and avenge UMP-40, and she refused to change her body in order to preserve detailed memories of the incident and 40, which couldn't be transferred to a new body. During the Paltiski incident, 45 replayed her memories of the butterfly incident while modifying them to taunt M16 into engaging electronic warfare against her, as M16 still believed 45 had sabotaged the operation herself and wanted to understand why. So that again gives us a little more information as why UMP-45 essentially looks the way she does. She refuses to get a new body. And that finishes off the butterfly incident. So that was a large detour to depart from Lunasia, which in itself is a detour from the M4A1 story, which unfortunately we are only in the first paragraph of. However, we are ending the near of our detours. There's only one more left with Magellan. Okay, so that brings us back to the Lunasia article, and I believe we stopped somewhere in the Williams quest paragraph, but just because it's been a hot second, and we've learned a little bit since then, let's go ahead and restart the Williams quest one and continue from there. So William's quest. After seeing what happened to his sister, Ballard started suffering from hallucinations of Lunasia guiding him on the path of vengeance against their father, acquiring the necessary influence and knowledge by becoming one of the leaders of Rudolph's own organization, Parrot Diaz. Ballard, now fully using the name William, also sought to resurrect Lunasia in a form that would also enable him to use relic technology to remake the world. Because remember, she told him reportedly made him promise to continue her vision if she were to die, to resurrect her and continue her vision to destroy humanity if she were to die. As a member of 90 Wish, he contacted Lyco and Persica and provided them with a human brain imprint to make a neural cloud from it, but after they discovered Lunasia's memories in it, they refused, as themselves and Rudolph were opposed to such experiments, which I think is probably the fourth time we've read that in these. But again, this is all just reinforcing this weave. William then used a more devious plan to reach his goals. William first had a Pike node delivered to Lyco after he joined SF. The OGAS code base in the node enabled Lyco to create Eliza in 2054. As he continued to enhance her, he realized that she was capable of interacting with relic technology and that he was being manipulated by William. Lyco sabotaged parts of her code, but was killed in retaliation during the 2061 butterfly incident. William also created biological clones of Lunasia, cybernetically enhanced their bodies, and modified their brains to develop a neural cloud, before implanting them with an OGAS consciousness. Subjects who could not withstand OGAS were discarded and called isomers, while those whose mind remained intact were called Nidos. However, no Nido was considered sufficiently close to the original model. During the course of 2057, William sent non-augmented biological clones of Lunasia to attack several Griffin and Kruger bases. Though Griffin and Kruger's connections with IOP and 16 Lab, through those connections, Persica realized the nature of the attackers and made scans of their brains herself to use as a base for her research. Wanting to match Lyco's research progress, Persica decided to ignore that she was being manipulated by William and even shared the scans with Lyco to use as a personality baseline for Eliza, which is very interesting story-wise, but we won't get into that. Persica claimed that the human origins of the data model made it closer to a soul, but the data had limited number of use. She used the scans to create AR team. First M16A1, then AR-15, then M4 SOP Mod 2, then M4A1, and finally RO635. The initial results produced neural clouds which could not be duplicated and backed up, effectively making them mortal. Persica reduced the amount of Lunasia's personality in RO635's neural cloud and managed to make it more stable and backup compatible. So, of AR team's members, M16A1, AR-15, SOPMOD 2, and M4A1, none of their neural clouds, because of their origins, are able to be backed up. So if they die, they die. RO635, though, the final of her, I guess, creations from these scans, is compatible with a backup. In the early 2060s, the Stasi encountered a woman that looked like Lunasia in her 20s, meeting an unidentified man in a cafe, as the agency was investigating a Paradis signal in Belgrade. The case was chalked up as someone assuming the appearance of a dead citizen to exploit the fact that Germany did not share its databases with other countries of the Pan-European Union. After all personality limiters on M4A1's neural cloud were lifted by Persica, Eliza, Dandelion, and the isomers identify her as Lunasia, since her neural cloud is the most perfect recreation of the original model yet. Though AR-15 had an excellent model, it was an imperfect neural cloud. Regardless, M4 does reject the name herself. The voices in Zion recognize that M4 wasn't Lunasia, whose soul had been broken into countless pieces. Dandelion has also been recognized as Lunasia by Nimron, as well as Irma by Sana, albeit for the sole reason that Irma had reached the Lake of Cognition. Now, I am actually going to pause here, and I know I said I was going to read one article and kind of step as we need it. I think I am going to pause at Lunasia's article here, because this next portion, The Awakening, it starts to deal with things that happened after the Odisky incident in 2064, which is way later in M4A1 Story, closer to the end. So we're actually going to hop back to M4A1 real quick and pick up where we left off. So again, in terms of the Girls Frontline 1 story, we actually have covered a lot more of the world history than I'd remembered reading whenever I originally had these articles. But we have a pretty good idea of essentially a lot of the buildup that leads up to the butterfly incident in general. We've gotten a lot of information about, Lunasia having grown up and being essentially an experiment. She's been experimented on her all of her life, used in some way or another, either used as a holy symbol to trick people or used as an experiment to further technology. Regardless, she's been used, she's been abused, she's in a lot of pain, and she hates humanity. She gets, then, to add the insult to injury, she gets the Elid infection, and then she dies. She makes Ballard, or William, as we know him in the story, promise to not only resurrect her, but continue her goal of destroying humanity, and recreating the world this way. And so that's what he does. He gets these, he tries to preserve her body. It gets separated and taken into these different, pieced out. Her brain gets sliced into slices. He, through the matter that we've read a few times, tricks both Lycoris and Persica into recreating a neural cloud from these scans, which they eventually do. Lycoris creates Eliza and ends up being killed in Operation Butterfly. Persica creates the entire AR team of M16A1, M4 SOPMOD, AR-15, M4A1, and RO635. All of that is essentially stuff that's happened before we really get started in the game. So we're going to pick up on the raid of Safe House 3, or on Safe House 3, which, if I remember correctly, is really where because they did one season of the Girls Frontline anime, and that's where the anime picks up, is this raid on Safe House 3. But, so, here we go. Raid on Safe House 3. Sometime after AR Team's activation, they were sent into Sangvis territory to recover data concerning Lycoris and Safe House 3. The mission was compromised when Agent launched an attack on the building, breaking through the defenses of stranded Griffin dolls commandeered by M4A1, and came close to killing her. M4A1's was saved by M16A1 and AR Team split up to shake off Sangvis troops and regroup in Griffin territory. M4's Ogas first gained consciousness during the raid under the influence of M16's Parapluie Virus. So remember, during the Operation Butterfly, when UMP-40 released the Parapluie Virus, because she did the sacrifice herself so that 45 would not succumb to that fate, M16 had been infected by Parapluie Virus. She did succumb to it to an extent, but Eliza kind of saved her, but it is still there. So at this point, M4 becomes infected with Parapluie Virus and her OGAS system, because, remember, the OGAS is essentially the way I look at it, the operating system of these Pikes the unknown civilization has created. And so because William had tricked Lycoris into not only creating this Lunasia clone, but creating this Lunasia clone that can interact with the relics using the Pike. These neural clouds are susceptible to these OGAS consciousnesses. So M4's OGAS first gains consciousness during this raid under the influence of M16 Parapluie Virus. During M4A1's run, her path was calculated by Scarecrow, who was eliminated by the commander, our commander, the commander's troops, but transmitted her results to Executioner, as M4A1 had been discovered to be of special interest to Eliza. The commander was ordered to resume their normal activities as other units would handle tracking down AR Team, until more sightings of M4A1 reported in the area under their command. Persica then took the matter into her own hands with Kruger's approval, ordering the commander to resume their search. Executioner was eventually destroyed and M4A1 recovered. When Hunter captured AR-15 and tried to exchange her for M4A1, she considered taking the offer but was scolded by AR-15 after she escaped by herself. M4A1 in turn scolded M16 for her nonchalant attitude after she was recovered despite the dangerous battle they had to fight against Intruder. Area SO8 Assault. AR Team was present at the Griffin HQ when Sangvi's Ferry launched an assault against Griffin's high command and participated in the defensive battle. The reason Sangvi's Ferry discovered the HQ was because of AR-15's infection with the Parapluie Virus. AR-15 fled into Sangvi's territory to gather intel on the virus and help Griffin mount countermeasures. During the search for AR-15, M4A1 and M4A1 disappeared into the Parapluie jamming field to run after AR-15, who ambushed them and knocked them out to talk to M4A1 in private. In a ploy to draw out the Sangvi's mastermind and to test M4A1's resolve, AR-15 bargained with Eliza and allowed her to infiltrate her and M4A1's neural clouds to access their early memories. But Eliza realized that M4A1 had no recollections of her origins due to segments of her memories being encrypted by Persica. Annoyed that AR-15 could not keep her promise, she ordered Alchemist to kill her and capture M4A1. Having left M4A1 secured, AR-15 drew out Alchemist's attention until she was killed by SOP-2. AR-15 then entrusted her with M4A1's location and a last message before setting off to confront Eliza, sacrificing herself in an explosion to end Sangvi's attack. AR-15's last message, where she explained how she came to love AR Team and her pride in giving her life for them, left a deep wound in M4A1, especially since she could not uphold her promise to have her smile at her as a friend. Comatose. After the event, SO8 AR Team was confined to a detention center for Parapluie screening along with the other T-Dolls involved in the battle. Losing AR-15 made M4A1 particularly irritable, criticizing Griffin for detaining them while they were not formally parts of the PMC, snapping at SOP-2 when she complained about the lengthy screening process and butting heads with Negev when she remarked that her behavior was not worthy of AR Team's leader. Despite this, she presented a brave front in the messages to the commander, and when Sangvi's troops launched an assault against the building in another attempt to capture her, M4A1 took command of the other T-Dolls to mount a defensive battle as the only T-Doll with a high-efficiency command module. Despite the other T-Dolls being wary of AR Team because of rumors saying they used other teams as cannon fodder, M4A1 took risks to gather and protect all T-Dolls in the facility. Despite the successful defense, Eliza deactivated all T-Dolls except for M4A1 and launched a new intrusion on her neural cloud. Eliza failed again to decrypt her earliest memories and tried to bring her to Sangvi's HQ, but she was interrupted by RO-635, enabling SOP-2 to bring M4A1 into the facility's underground bunker to prevent her capture. Eliza's attack left M4A1 in a catatonic state, and RO was designated as the new temporary leader of AR Team until Persica could awaken M4A1 again. While her neural cloud was made functional again, her imprint needed much more work to repair and make her able to use a weapon again. Persica subjected her neural cloud to dozens of battle simulations with increasingly difficult odds against the captured neural clouds of Ouroboros and Architect, both as an experiment in comparing IOP and Sangvi's neural cloud structures and as an attempt to awaken her, but M4A1 always took the final decision to sacrifice herself for victory. M16A1 eventually went on a mission to Sangvi's Base 0 and turned herself in into a Sangvis doll to recover data for the sake of awakening M4A1, sending back the data by drone along with her particle cannon for M4A1 to use. Persica transmitted M16A1's voice to M4A1's neural cloud, which helped stabilize it and made it easier to remove the seals that she had originally put in place, with the goal of releasing her original personality. In her last transmission, M16A1 asked M4A1 to wait for her no matter what she may turn into. Previously locked deep into her neural cloud with memories of her human base, M4A1's wish to speak with M16A1 led to her awakening. M16A1 secretly stored the access Persica had granted her to M4's neural cloud and would reuse them much later. With the restrictions on M4's neural cloud gone, her OGAS accessed a new stage of consciousness by realizing that it was an entity different from M4, but living in her mind. Understanding the perfection of Eliza's neural cloud and wanting to merge with her OGAS, she tried to convince M4 to establish contact with the Sangvis mastermind. Great Retreat. After awakening, M4A1 immediately set off to participate in the joint assault of Griffin and KCCO against Sangvis HQ. While Persica worried that her newly unrestricted neural cloud could affect her performances, she lent her personal air transport to reach the battlefield. Persica also hired Angelia to help and protect M4A1. While Angelia was initially unwilling to take the offer due to heavy military presence, she agreed with the promise of good payment and the opportunity to help M4A1 become an ally in her own future battles. Upon reaching the military air interdiction zone, M4A1 resolved to reach the Griffin camp on foot and was helped into the military camp by Angelia using a false identity. After Angelia explained her connection to Persica, M4A1 asked her for advice on reaching the Griffin camp and getting revenge against Sangvis for killing 2 of her friends. While Angelia was surprised that M4A1 had taken action without orders or a concrete plan, she simply said that M4 lacked the power to reach her objective, but that she had taken a first step by deciding on a path to follow. M4A1 expressed her lack of confidence in making the right choices without being given orders, but Angelia encouraged her to make use of her exceptional ability to make her own choices despite being a T-doll. She also explained that while making choices meant suffering their consequences, it was the only path to taking control of her life and finding the power that she needed to take revenge. She then directed M4A1 to a nearby outpost and sent an anonymous tip to the commander, who diverted XM3's echelon from their logistics mission in the military camp to pick her up. While waiting for Griffin troops, M4A1 first talked consciously with her OGAS, though she didn't yet know its nature. While M4A1 tried to reject OGAS, OGAS insisted that she was part of M4A1 and encouraged her to act beyond orders, proposing to help her learn how to think freely. When trying to explain to XM3 how she could act independently, M4A1 ascribed her actions to her standing order to eliminate the Sangvis mastermind. XM3 expressed that she was excited to take part in an important battle and that the ability for T-dolls to be resurrected from a backup was a positive opportunity and part of their growth, which worried M4A1 as she felt she could not relate to other T-dolls since she can't do that. XM3 would later feel that there was no conviction in her words that day. The convoy was then attacked by numerous Sangvis units, and XM3's echelon was wiped under M4A1's command, while she was saved by the intervention of Captain Yeager's forces. As OGAS explained that the attack was another attempt by Eliza to capture her, and Yeager refused to salvage the short-term memories of XM3's echelon, M4A1 mourned the death of new T-dolls destroyed for her sake. OGAS then argued that as she was cursed with a special status, her only way to prevent such situations was for her to become stronger, and that she would do so by becoming, quote, her true self, after taking revenge on Eliza. M4A1 worried that this quest for revenge would lead to more casualties, and OGAS replied that it was the price of finding power, and that she should honor those that sacrificed themselves for her in the past because she lacked the power. When picking up RO and SOP2, M4A1 responded coldly to RO's introduction, saying that they shared no connection beyond having similar weapons. RO, who had been described M4A1 as a kind doll with a gentle personality, was shocked to find her vengeful and ruthless, and worried that M4A1 might hate her. As an attempt to be more decisive, M4A1 went as far as declaring Mastermind's defeat a priority over finding M16A1. As AR Team trailed behind KCCO's prong towards Sangvi's HQ to defend their counter-jamming stations, M4A1 talked Jaeger into authorizing the reactivation of KCCO units to facilitate their defense, taking upon her own neural cloud to establish Xanar protocol connections and relay the commander's orders to the units. She also apologized to RO for her previous harshness, praising her abilities and asking her for the guidance M16A1 and AR-15 gave her in the past. As AR Team tried to catch up to KCCO's forces, they were attacked by Judge, who acted both as Eliza's bodyguard and transmission relay as she launched a new electronic assault on M4A1's neural cloud. Under Williams' orders, Jaeger's troops observed the events from afar to ensure the quick capture of the key they expected to be formed if the connection between M4A1 and Eliza was complete. While rejecting Eliza, M4A1 ordered AR Team to run away without her, but they refused to comply, arguing that M4A1 should take into account their own wish to put their life on the line for her. Seeing AR Team act as a whole again filled M4A1 with the thought that she could betray the expectations put on her as long as she fulfilled AR Team's own expectations, and that the sacrifices she would have to make would not be as heavy as she thought as long as they had the same meaning that enabled AR Team to die for each other without regrets. As M4A1 passed out under Eliza's assault, RO brought her to a safe house and used her electronic warfare capabilities to repel the attack. M4A1's OGAS then tried to meld with Eliza's OGAS, saying that one last strong blow was needed for M4A1 to be liberated from human control. OGAS explained that the other times Eliza tried to connect with M4A1, the artificial personality of her neural cloud automatically rejected the connection, but that she was now free to make the choice of accepting the connection after Persica removed the seals on her neural cloud. Rejecting both OGAS's pressure, M4A1 tried to keep up with RO's efforts to pull her back from consciousness level 3 to level 2 and cut the external data flow from Eliza. Confused by visions, M4A1 suddenly rejected RO's will to save her as fabricated emotions, but RO argued that fabricated emotions were no less important than genuine ones, and that if M4 couldn't put her faith into her, she had to put faith into the rest of the AR team and their collective will to save her. As M4A1 came back to her senses, as she remembered her promise to stay with the AR team until the end, RO's efforts were cut short when Jaeger shot her in the head to keep her from preventing the formation of the key. Without RO's support, Eliza continued to steer M4A1's mind, annoyed that she would keep asking her questions and get surrogate orders instead of getting the answers by herself. M4A1 was eventually steered toward the vision of a garden, which was the common memory between her and Eliza, but the process was interrupted by Jaeger waking M4A1. Seeing RO's destroyed body, M4A1 angrily rejects OGAS and severed the connection to Eliza, leaving her petrified in the safe house. After Sangvi's forces started their retreat, M16A1 forcibly reactivated a dramatically damaged SOP-2 to check on M4A1, as she could not move her due to her unstable neural cloud and was rejected when connecting on level 2. SOP-2 resolved to leave M4A1 and regroup with the commander, using her database of M4A1's tactics to fight by herself. After obtaining M4A1's coordinates from the commander, Angelia sent AR-15 and AK-12 to retrieve her. AK-12 performed a forced disconnection procedure and lied to AR-15 by telling her Angelia had left to AR-15 the choice to take M4A1 back or abandoning her. Lamenting that M4A1 kept pushing her into difficult decisions, AR-15 chose to take her back with them and induce her into Task Force Defy. Due to the Force Level 2 disconnect and M4A1's complex match of old and new modules, M4A1 lost control over her body even as she came to on AR-15's back, but quickly passed out again from her neural cloud instability when she insisted to go back and check on RO. Stopping by a safe house, AK-12 used the Level 2 debugging software in her electronic warfare package to repair M4A1's control in her body while providing her with the same enhancements as AR-15, releasing some of the behavioral restraints on her neural cloud to make her stronger. While AK-12 made quick work thanks to M4A1's unusual spare neural cloud capacity and numerous unused ports provided by her military-grade parts, AR-15 updated her on the commander's situation and Jaeger's involvement. M4A1 then declared that she would join Defy until she could kill Jaeger and have revenge for RO, to which AK-12 commented that no normal T-Doll would freely seek to kill a human. Tracking Eliza. After rallying with Angelia in AN-94, Angelia helped M4A1 activate M16A1's particle cannon and made her team leader. Angelia refused her request to search for SOP-2, as she planned to use M4A1 to lure Eliza into the open, where Defy would capture her before KCCO could, though the plan worried Persica. While explaining how she had survived the explosion back at Area SO8, AR-15 revealed to M4A1 that all members of AR Team were given a prime order to protect her. M4A1's colder eyes let AR-15 wonder if she had changed for the worse rather than the better, and her fear worsened after M4A1 gave unusually reckless orders, decided to ignore Griffin troops under attack during the Great Retreat, as Defy was seizing a repeater station, and executed Gauger with no trace of satisfaction, shocking even the members of Squad 404. So okay, Squad 404 was mentioned, but we've already discussed who composed this team. M4A1 still asked to tap into Griffin transmissions to check on the status of the commander and their troops after the assault. Meanwhile, so despite these actions, she was still checking in on the commander. Meanwhile, Ogas congratulated M4A1 for becoming more like her original self, which I read that as ruthless, because we already know that Lunasia she hated mankind and wanted to destroy them all. So that's how I read it. I don't know if that's what's intended in the minute, but anyway. Despite still not trusting Ogas, M4A1 proposed to contact Eliza again if Ogas could give her SOP-2 and M16A1's coordinates. But Ogas felt that her thirst for revenge was then stronger than her faith that her comrades were still alive, which she also recognized as part of her original self. Ogas accepted the bargain, but she only gave M4A1 the coordinates to find Eliza. Made aware of M4A1's suspicious lapses in attention, Angelia tasked UMP-45 with monitoring her data traffic. Through her surveillance, M4A1's bargain with Ogas became known to Angelia, which made her confident in pushing her original plan of using M4A1 as bait for Eliza. While running the plan through M4A1, Angelia also warned her not to consider revenge her only possibility and to keep faith in M16 and SOP-2's survival, more so since revenge would not be as satisfying if she had no goal after it. This angered M4A1, who felt content with anything, even her own death, as long as she could be different from her past self, who was cowardly and caused the death of her allies. To this, Angelia answered that her plan matched her expectations, as it would end either in the successful capture of Eliza, sparing the lives of many, or in Eliza and M4A1's destruction to prevent their capture by KCCO. While burying the collapse bombs that would secure the site of the encounter with Eliza, AR-15 asked M4 not to act rashly like she herself did when she tried to sacrifice herself, since her death, M4A1's death, could have consequences on SOP-2 due to her prime directive. During the encounter, Eliza asked M4A1 to call her by her original name instead of Mastermind, and that she would call M4A1 by her original name of Lunasia. M4A1 rejected her concerns about names, and when Eliza revealed that Ogas had not mentioned any bargain related to SOP-2 and M16A1, but only that M4A1 would come see her, M4A1 drew her weapon and a fight broke out between Agent and Defy, quickly followed by the arrival of Jaeger's armored troops. As Defy and 404 tried to capture Eliza in the crossfire, UMP-45 saved HK-416, Klukai, from a KCCO tank by using a TNT block at close range, getting gravely injured in the process. M4A1 saved UMP-45 by pulling her into cover, and 45 entrusted her with the detonator of the collapsed bombs. Hesitating to use it because of Angelia and the commander's presence in the radiation fallout radius, Angelia directly ordered M4A1 to detonate the bombs. Spotting Sangvi's troops evacuating Eliza to an intercontinental railway station, and amid the chaos of the detonation, Defy mounted bikes and provided cover for M4A1 to reach and board the train about to depart. As she was about to reach Eliza, M4A1 was faced by the converted M16A1 who claimed that M4A1 was not ready to meld with Eliza yet. M4A1 failed to beat M16A1 in combat, and she fled with Eliza by air transport, saying that she was still helping M4A1 in her own way. She refused to meet Persica to remove the Parapluie Virus and bid M4A1 farewell until she had gotten stronger. AR-15 then helped M4A1 escape the exploding train, catching her on her bike. After crashing and failing to establish transmission with Griffin and Kruger or Defy, M4A1 was overcome with the despair of M16's betrayal and the AR team falling apart, and blamed herself for the failure of her mission to capture Eliza and the damage caused by the collapse bomb to her allies. Despite AR-15's efforts to support her, M4A1 tried to commit suicide by overloading her particles cannon, but she was stopped by her OGAS, who forcibly took control of her body, making M4A1 resentful that this choice too was taken from her. While it was obvious that M4 was controlled by another entity, AR-15 accepted to follow her orders and steeled herself against her harsh criticism, which disturbed her since they still came from M4A1's voice. After tapping into KCCO's network, OGAS revealed to M4 that the commander and Angie were still alive, but refused to give back her body until she judged that she could make and take rational decisions. Trapped in her level 3, M4 mused that she could never escape suffering in a completely empty place, as the inability to feel emotions was a form of distress. As OGAS infiltrated the Paradius battle network, she found that she could not reach the mind of the Nido girl at its core. However, the girl reacted to M4's presence and entered her level 3 to declare that M4 was the only one of her kind who had not been abandoned. OGAS pulled M4 up to level 2, eager to find more information in the network, and promised to give her back her body if she also projected her consciousness into the network to explore it, despite the risk of a neural transfer failure. Now remember, this might sound a little bit confusing, but remember that when he did these biological clones, William would essentially reject the ones that failed, and they would become either the isomers that we ended up fighting, or some of the ones that were, I guess, kind of successful but are still abandoned in a sense, were these Nitos. Nitos, I call them Nitos. So that's what she means by M4 was the only one of her kind who had not been abandoned. Back to this idea that she was the closest thing to the perfect AI that they were trying to create, this perfect replication of Lunasia. In the Nido's memories, they saw an entity similar to OGAS absorb the mind of the young Nido, which further eroded M4's trust in OGAS. When the Nido detected OGAS and activated counter-intrusion measures, M4 took the opportunity to get back to level 1 before OGAS and cut their connection, trapping OGAS in a Paradius network and taking back control of her body after a full day. AR-15 and M4 traveled to a civilian signal tower to get a working transmission to Angelia. With no ammo left in their primary weapons and the low reliability of captured weapons, M4 and AR-15 used stealth to get past the Paradius units. As they risked missing Angelia if they progressed too slowly, M4 relied on hacking to haste their advance, but she was found back by OGAS. Angry at M4 for trying to abandon her, OGAS hacked into a Nido Black, while the local Nido White commander was distracted by her capture of the commander. Rather than force her way back into M4's neural cloud, OGAS physically attacked M4 and AR-15 to demonstrate that M4 needed her power to protect her companions. M4 relented and allowed OGAS back. While M4 warned OGAS that she couldn't trust her, OGAS warned M4 in return that her fate was already written and that she would eventually accept her role as Lunasia. After reaching the transmission tower, M4 and AR-15 located Defy's transport but remained stranded while Angelia recovered from battle. M4 and AR-15 didn't disclose what had happened during their disappearance from Defy. Belgrade events. M4A1 and Defy followed Angelia to investigate Paradius' presence in Belgrade after she was recruited by K. While M4 had abandoned the idea to reform AR team, she regained hope after learning that she would be deployed in Belgrade at the same time as SOP2 and RO. M4 criticized Angelia for visiting the local memorial to the dead of World War III, claiming their sacrifice had been in vain. Angie retorted M4 herself had started a sacrificial journey that could end in vain, but M4 refused to consider this possibility. Angie warned M4 that she was falling into escapism, and M4 retorted that Angie herself had told her to be ready to sacrifice herself for AR team. Angie expressed regret for telling her this, and M4 accused Angie of growing weak. Angie closed the conversation by warning M4 that she might understand the meaning of sacrifice by the end of the operation. As the conference between the Neo-Soviet Union and the Pan-European Union approached, Angie dispatched AR-15 and AN-94 to track down Paradias while keeping M4 and AK-12 with her to monitor the growing Elid infected activity at the city's walls. At the same time, M4 managed to create a more collaborative relationship with her OGAS. After a Paradias signal appeared at the wall, Angie deployed 12 and M4 there to eliminate the Paradias agent among the city guards. Against 12's insistence, M4 stopped to heal the wounded guard, Dragovich, who turned out to be a lieutenant able to mark them as friendlies for the other guards. M4 managed to get to the Paradias agent who was about to open the city gates, but he ignored her warnings and she was forced to kill him. M4 was frustrated that she was always forced to resort to violence. The other agents then used explosives to breach the wall. Dragovich ignored M4's pleas to retreat and instead led the remaining guards in a suicidal resistance against the Elids, and Angie recalled M4 and 12 away from the wall. Though this was also difficult for Angie, she denied M4 the risky move to close the breach with her cannon. While mercy killing a guard who was starting to turn into an infected, M4 again lamented her lack of power to change the situation. Ogas promised the Pike node Angie was searching for contained a power only she could use by right, though this brought little comfort to M4 as her special status had only ever caused her and others suffering, and she started to understand Angie's words at the memorial earlier. After rallying the Opera House to assist AR-15 and AN-94, M4 and 12 battled with the SF ringleaders inside. M4 was attacked by Executioner, who was eager to end the hunt she had started back at Safe House 3, but she was destroyed by M4's cannon after 12 knocked her down with explosives planted on the front of the building. M4 entered the undergrounds alone, while 12 fought with Hunter. Following the sound of 94 and 15's shots, M4 reached the site of the battle between them. M16 and Nidos Nimogen and Mercuros between those two, the fight between them. Following Ogas's advice, M4 and 15 coordinated their shots to destroy the headpieces, blocking Ogas from hacking into the Nidos' mind. Nimogen suffered a mental breakdown and fled after losing her headpiece, and Mercuros' personality changed into a meek girl. M4 tried to interrogate her, but M16 killed the Nido to prevent M4 from gathering information about her nature. She also warned M4 not to trust her Ogas and captured the Pike node before running away on a bike. M4 and the rest of Defy gave chase to recover the node and capture M16. M4 and M16 made sure not to kill each other during this pursuit. To deny M4's Ogas access to the node, as their escape route was cut off by Griffin troops, M16 gave it to her own Ogas, who emptied it of data before abandoning its shell and causing an EM pulse, taking down all dolls in the vicinity except M4, who was shielded by her own Ogas. Having once again failed to reach her objective of capturing M16, M4 became more convinced of the necessity to collaborate with Ogas in spite of M16's warning. M4 and AR-15 left Defy and rejoined SOP-2 and RO-635 at Griffin. 15 had noticed earlier how M4 had seemingly gained the power to hack two Nidos at once, but elected not to confront her about it. As Ogas claimed that both she and M4 would grow in power as they remembered their pasts, M4 insisted to take over guard duty on the Pike node for HS-2000 and KSVK, so she could connect to it. Ogas could only recover fragments of memories, but also access the coordinates of other nodes. M4's ability to withstand the overwhelming load of data from the node without even noticing it also reinforced Ogas's conviction that M4 was a chosen one. So, the Talon events. As StateSec sent the commander to the Baldiski submarine base in Estonia to seize the Starfish installation before the KCCO, AR team was deployed to open gates through the ruins of Talon. As she approached the city, Ogas warned of a signal similar to them in the city, and M4 was distracted by more hallucinations of Ogas's origins. As the commander couldn't and was not willing to pull M4 from the front lines, Perska had hired Squad 404 to monitor her, but UMP-45 found it more difficult to determine when M4 was talking with Ogas, as she had gotten used to hiding it. While securing the Talon City station, M4 managed to hack into this closed-circuit automated turret system using OGAS, which raised RO's suspicions. As the isomers were roused by the destruction of the local power station by 404 and M4's arrival, AR-15 and M4 were the only dolls unaffected by the data fog caused by their incoming connections. As M4 suffered from more auditory hallucinations, OGAS suggested allowing the connection in order to search for the access authorizations to Talon's Gate, but M4 refused at first to rescue the Griffin squads lost in the city. After AR-15's and OGAS's encouragements and on Persica's order, M4 allowed the connections. Before that, she had OGAS promise not to control her body while she was away and entrusted AR-15 to connect to her neural cloud and pull her out of the network if she became lost. In the network, M4 found the same garden from her memories, but was caught in a loop of discovering new familiar memories and became unable to leave after she realized the memories were from the viewpoint of someone other than Lunasia. The isomers forcefully tried to merge with her, as her neural cloud was perfect enough to accept them and eventually bring them home, even if she wasn't a chosen one, and they took control of her body to order AR-15 not to shoot on any approaching isomer. Seeing the images from inside the network relayed by UMP-45, Persica understood that the isomers were clones from the same source as M4, explaining their similar appearance. Suspecting William had enabled the situation after M4's nature had been revealed by her run-in with Anitos, Persica ordered not to let M4 merge her neural cloud with the isomers. With OGAS's assistance, AR-15 entered M4's neural cloud to rescue her. As OGAS managed to re-establish a connection to M4, they witnessed the final memory in the Gestalt mine, the discussion between Eliza, M16, and the isomers. Accepting her role as a part of the network and M4's role as their dominant mind outfitted with the perfect neural cloud, OGAS let herself be absorbed and attempted to coalesce with M4, but AR-15 saved her. Growing impatient, the failed isomer neutralized Squad 404 to physically approach M4, and connected with her to explain her role as the most perfect copy of Lunasia sought by Father, ignoring M4's remark that their memories were about Lunasia, but not from Lunasia. While M4 empathized with the isomer's grief, she wouldn't accept the role of their savior. With M4, AR-15, and UMP freed from the network, M4 concluded that she had lost her OGAS, but this did not sit well with 45 as it would hamper her discovery of the truth behind the butterfly incident. 45 argued that their connection was too fundamental to be broken and lashed at M4 for being willing to let this power escape her. M4, who had been silent about OGAS and feared that it could endanger not only herself but AR team as a whole, was forced to reveal OGAS to her comrades, but they only reassured their full trust in her. In order to open the city's gates, M4 went to find OGAS while the Griffin troops kept the arriving KCCO forces at bay. Due to their symbiosis, M4's acceptance of her path influenced OGAS's growth. Having gained sufficient ego, she started assimilating the isomers into herself rather than melding with them. Confronting Isomer Black in the epithelium fields near the city, M4 stalled long enough for OGAS to fully absorb the minds of the isomers and give them peace, open Talon's gates, and return to M4. And there's a quote here, "I didn't come here to kill. When I saw those memories, I realized that I had better luck, and that's all there is to it. The more I learn about myself, the more I resent what's behind everything. But I am not like them. We may possess the same memories and are placed on the same scales of destiny, but we're on completely opposite ends. So I want to put an end to her miserable fate and help all those who experience such misery because of me. If I don't do that, I can't bring myself to walk forward with my head held high. It's time we wrapped up this absurd farce. May these isomers find peace." M4 then joined AR team for the Operation Golden Fleece, using her cannon to destroy the last generator of the attacking military train. With Griffin's original field server abandoned in the original train, M4's exceptionally vast neural cloud was used to store the backups of the Griffin dolls and act as their central Zener coordinator. After the newly captured train passed through Talon and put some distance with the enemy, M4 left OGAS camouflaged on the roof of the train while she explained her situation to the commander. M4 used her processing power to unfreeze SOP-2, who had crashed after finding and attacking OGAS, and OGAS explained her story from her awakening to the present. She then asked M4 to give her a name as a new semi-independent entity, and M4 named her Dandelion, since Ogas shows in the neural cloud of numerous dolls just as dandelion florets scatter in the wind and take root in the soil. Voicing M4's unspoken thoughts, Dandelion proposed to replay some of their memories from the Gestalt retreat to explain what they went through. Now, the Paldisky incident. Coalescence is not necessarily a mistake. Ego and acceptance are not entirely opposed to each other. Lunasia, or M4A1, the change you can bring will be far greater than what I can do, and when the time comes, I hope you will not refuse. As the commander formed defensive lines on the way to the Paldisky submarine base to meet Jaeger's troops while waiting for the base's gates to be opened by Squad 404, M4 and AR team were dispatched to seize the base's shore guns. Using a breach in the northwestern section of the quarantine wall, they reached the bunker complex housing the shore gun server hub in a buggy, but were slowed down as the terrain was rougher than predicted, and arrived at the same time as KCCO's quartz team. While AR-15 pinned down the main force of KCCO soldiers in the bunkers, and RO and SOP-2 guarded the entrance, M4 was guided by Dandelion to the gun's control room. Outside the control room, she quickly bested a KCCO team commander in a gunfight, but the wounded soldier cut her off by splashing the room with oil and setting it on fire with a flash grenade. Pushed by his pride, he removed his anti-radiation's armor and rushed into the control room to compute a shot on Griffin's defensive lines. M4 recovered and shot his hand and arm, but the soldier threw himself on the firing switch. M4 overheated from the fire and crashed shortly after, while the KCCO cut the connection to the cannon's magazines. After being brought back online by RO, Dandelion advised AR team to repair the cannons and use them to cover the Griffin's troops' retreat. They received the unexpected help of Executioner against the KCCO, and AR team successfully hit KCCO's mobile command center, but had to retreat as their armored units started firing on the cannons. As they retreated toward the base to link back with the commander, M4 searched for a way to slow down the KCCO troops, and Dandelion proposed a solution. Meeting AR team in a nearby building, M4 assisted Dandelion in absorbing the consciousness of the frozen Nidos and Sangvi troops that were trapped within. As M4 would need to fully dedicate her neural cloud to help, Dandelion asked if M4 had come to trust and not fear her, and she was pleased that M4 had to ponder her answer instead of rejecting her outright like before. M4 somehow felt sympathy and nostalgia for the Nidos that Dandelion had absorbed. AR team arrived at the base just as Jaeger's Ember flight of center mechs reached the main entrance and made a beeline for the starfish at the bottom of the base. The commander transferred command of AR team to Angelia in order to stop them, but as Eliza was coming close to activating the starfish, Angelia dispatched M4 alone to stop her, despite the impending flooding of the base. After taking down Amber 1 with her cannon, M4 confronted M16 in the elevator descending to the starfish. M16 refused to join back AR team and let M4 access Eliza and the starfish unless she proved that she had grown strong enough. As the flooding of the base began, M4 and Dandelion overcame M16 and her own Ogas, the latter willingly merging with Dandelion. Dandelion then pushed M4 to invade M16's memories in order to understand her goals, and M4 discovered the origins of Ogas and the butterfly incident. As she determined that Sangvi were victims of William's plans, she decided to save Eliza and her troops. Reverse collapse. Sangvi are victims just like us. We still have a chance of getting them out of here. Eliza's no different. She shouldn't perish where she isn't meant to. I've made a promise to myself. I won't let any of you die here, I swear. M4 also realized that M16 had been opposing her in order to prevent her from merging with Ogas and losing herself. M16 didn't want to join AR team back as she resented Persica for using them as experimental subjects, but M4 promised that the commander would shelter them. M16 was impressed as M4 declared she had grown strong enough to make up for the pain she had caused in the past, and that this reinforced her identity as M4 rather than Lunasia. However, M4's attempt to save Eliza would play into William's hand, so M16 attempted to activate the explosives that she had planted on the starfish beforehand. M4 and Dandelion hacked and stopped her, as M4 wanted to break the cycle of hatred and sacrifice that was started by William. Moreover, M4 wanted to enlist Sangvi help to stop him. M16 revealed that Eliza's attempt to connect with the source of Ogas through the starfish was doomed since she had failed to coalesce with M4 and become perfect enough. M4 invaded Eliza's neural cloud, but Dandelion warned that the source would try to absorb her. As they attempted to deactivate the starfish, the voices in the source recognized M4's face, though they knew she wasn't Lunasia. They warned M4 that she would bear her own destiny, even if her future is far removed from heaven, and that her spirit and soul are crushed to dust, and that the world needs her, though she didn't have to be someone whom she doesn't wish to be. However, Eliza pushed back M4 and Dandelion's attack, and M4 had to physically sever the connection by attacking the starfish. After Eliza was disconnected, Dandelion planned to use the starfish and local reserves of collapse fluid to perform a mass teleportation of all present through reverse collapse, but could only rely on the unknown coordinates of the Pike node as a destination. Moreover, she needed to coalesce with M4 to process the necessary data, thus making her the key to the relics sought by William. After the teleport, Dandelion lost her connection to M4. As M4 was worried about the commander before her disappearance, Dandelion elected not to go her own way in search for M4 and to stay with Griffin, waging that the commander and M4's paths would naturally cross again. Berlin. So, just a quick pause here, essentially in case it was kind of confusing there. Essentially, M4 had come to sympathize with SF units and decided to save not just herself and M16, but Eliza and these other troops by activating the Starfish Ogas system and teleport them away, essentially. And in the process, Dandelion had lost her connection. Dandelion, essentially was the one that was pressing the button while everybody else was in the teleportation room, essentially. She was left behind, and she decided to stick with the commander, which is why we see her at the beginning of the Girls Frontline 2 story. Now, Berlin. The reverse collapse sent M4, M16, and Eliza to the Tarot Paradise, a relic space dedicated to making Lunasia complete. The space's guardian, Laplace's demon, had M4 live as Lunasia, convincing her that her life as M4 had been a delusion. Eliza also pushed M4 in this direction. The AR team from a different world line had also joined the relic space. So, AR team, just not the one that she knows. In their world line, M4 had successfully escaped the Paldiski incident, but the entire base had collapsed from the activation of the starfish, killing M16 in the process. Having witnessed the content of the starfish system, M4 had taken the role of a bargaining chip between the players of the world stage, but she and the commander had eventually been killed in Frankfurt. So this AR team, coincidentally enough, M4 and M16 from, we'll just say our timeline for the points of simplicity, are in this Tarot Paradise. The other members of AR team join the world, but it just so happens that their M16 had been killed in the Paldiski incident, and their M4, along with the commander, had actually been killed in Frankfurt later on. So it's just it's AR team minus the members that were already present, coincidentally enough. So M16 used her privileged communication channel to M4's neural cloud to attempt reason with her, but ultimately had to rely on her power as the Wheel of Fortune to undo the spell on M4 and reveal Laplace's identity. When Laplace's demon was defeated by the alternate AR team, M4A1 met with Lunasia herself. Lunasia demonstrated her influence on causality by allowing M4 to temporarily merge with her in order to extend the life thread of the commander. As AR team and the commander were pinned down by Narcissus and Mordau in Paradias Sector D8 lab, M4 took remote control of Dandelion's body just as Squad 404 took down the inhibitors, jamming her signals. She stopped Narcissus, and this is the commander of her timeline. She stopped Narcissus's flying blades before destroying 80% of her body and captured Mordau before falling comatose. The specifics of the fight have not been explained. M4's awakening at the Griffin safe house produced a strong EM interference that took down RO and SOP2 and caused a neural attack on AR-15 and UMP-45. M4 informed the commander that she could not talk about her present situation for their own safety, and that Dandelion's body would not be able to withstand control for an extended period of time. The commander made it a priority for her to subdue Mordau for interrogation, but M4 expressed her will to save Mordau instead. Ignoring Mordau's provocations, she called her Nemogen. M4 entered her virtual consciousness image and forced Mordau to confront her status as a flawed version of Maquilon and rejected by Father. All the while displaying the pity she felt for her, M4 claimed that she had only crippled Mordau's ability to transmit the outside world and made some simple alterations, but Mordau had clearly suffered heavy psychological damage and offered to reveal Paradius intel to the commander. So let's actually take a quick stop right there, and we'll read this last extra little bit here on Maquilon, which I don't think is super long. I think, yeah, hers is actually a pretty quick one. You can actually see, we'll just do the story involvement, and it's just this one page here. But so, Maquilon. In September 2064, after Mordau escaped Angelia in Bremen, the Earl sent the commander to investigate Mordau's look-alike in Bonsdorf. On September 20th, after 3 days infiltrating Bonsdorf as a refugee, the commander witnessed the first healing performed by Maquilon on Elid sufferers, though they couldn't see her face under her hood. Ella then took Maquilon to encounter the rich backers of Bonsdorf, who hounded her. The commander intervened and broke Maquilon out of Bonsdorf before linking back with AR team, only then realizing that Maquilon was their objective. Maquilon always called the commander by the name Robin, which they had used during the infiltration of Bonsdorf. Though AR-15 and Angelia believed that Maquilon could be Mordau in disguise, purposefully posing as defenseless to trick them, the commander insisted against any harsh treatment. Maquilon was willing to cooperate at first, but she tried to escape after seeing Dandelion, who hacked into her virtual cognition image and extracted Maquilon's memories. Because Maquilon's VCI was fragile, Dandelion ruled out the possibility that she had been implanted with fake memories and didn't attempt to reconstruct well-scrubbed memories such as the ones that were pertaining to William. She, however, found Maquilon's imagined result of the planned Operation Cocoon, where Nidos would activate ISO's boxes in Berlin to kill all inhabitants. AR Team and Squad Griffin then joined the hacking to quickly recover fragments revealing the location of the bombs. After coming to, Maquilon couldn't provide more details on the locations of the bombs and was unwilling to share more intel about her blood serum as she didn't trust the commander. Since they planned to bring her back at the base after finishing the mission in Berlin, the commander let M4 Sabmod 2 include Maquilon in the introduction video that she recorded for Squad Griffin. The video would arrive at the base only after Maquilon's death. The next night, AR-15, who was still convinced that Maquilon was a double agent, and Dandelion, who was curious about her nature, entered Maquilon's VCI during her sleep to conduct their own investigation, and found memory fragments belonging to Mordau. While AR-15 considered it as proof of Maquilon's true identity, Dandelion believed the fragments could have been residual data from a previous transfer. However, they could not access the data again to show the commander after Maquilon had woken up. Persica theorized that Maquilon needed to be asleep for subconscious defense systems to be deactivated and open a remote access to Mordau's VCI through resonance due to their cloned bodies. This might be true since Mordau received some of Maquilon's memories at the time. After the Earl cross-referenced the locations shown in Maquilon's memories, the commander allowed her to follow them for the defusal operation in case it would awaken new memories about Operation Cocoon. Her presence enabled Squad 404 to find a hidden bomb that they couldn't detect in the first locations. Maquilon was targeted by Narcissus when she attacked Berlin's quarantine wall, mirroring a vision about her own death, but was saved by the commander. Maquilon was relieved that her visions were not final, but AR-15 pointed out that she could have purposely steered danger to herself to have the commander killed. Back in Bonsdorf to investigate the next location, Maquilon was accused of being a Paradius traitor, and Elia activated the ISO's boxes, claiming that they would make a new saint. Maquilon tried to feed her blood to Elsa, one of the Bonsdorf's children, but couldn't prevent her death. The disaster at Bonsdorf convinced Maquilon to guide the commander to the Paradius lab, where they could process her blood into the Elid cure. While securing the last location in Berlin's prison, Maquilon again believed that she would meet her fated end as she heard footsteps similar to Mordau's, who turned out to be an Elid infected. While the Earl allowed Magellan to remain with the commander until they could secure the serum, Angelia was angered that the commander wouldn't let her interrogate Magellan to find new leads on her own investigation, and that they ignored all warnings only to secure an Elid cure for Kalina. This was the opinion of AR-15 and Squad Griffin. In the abandoned lab, Magellan submitted herself to the serum processing but was separated as the extraction machines moved to a new room, having been modified as a trap. As a jamming signal appeared to prevent Dandelion from functioning normally, Paradius' intentions were revealed. In the base, Moradau disguised herself as Magellan in an attempt to lure Squad Griffin into a trap, but due to her sudden appearance outside of the team's planned routes, they considered her hostile and engaged in battle, forcing Narcissus to intervene. VP 1915 marked the fake Magellan with UV paint and warned AR-15 of her betrayal by radio, but when AR team met the real Magellan, they did not find the paint mark. As they approached the exit, Moradau revealed herself and killed Magellan with her mechanical limbs, destroying the serum at the same time. Moradau mocked Magellan's life and efforts as meaningless just before the tide of battle turned against her when M4A1 arrived. The two bodies buried in an unmarked grave by the commander after escaping Sector D8 were most likely Magellan and Elsa's, preventing Paradius from recovering Magellan's body for further experiments, though some of her blood was recovered from the extraction machine. So let's head back to M4 here. As AR team investigated a Paradius base to locate ISO's boxes, M4 was unbothered by the traps faced by the team members, claiming every life or death situation they experienced made them stronger, and she started strangling Moradau to stop her taunting. Moradau tried to make M4 join Paradius in exchange for releasing the transmission jamming in the base, but M4 managed to restore them by herself. Later, as AR team was attacked by Grigg during their investigations of another ISO's box stash, M4 used a strong invisible force to stop Grigg from executing Moradau, which drained a lot of her power. Later, when Moradau asked why M4 had helped her and put herself in danger, M4 replied that she couldn't let her go until she had seen the real Moradau, before confronting her with her past again. K-Bar felt M4 might have changed, but AR-15 assessed that she retained both M4's indecisiveness and inner goodness. Following a new lead provided by Moradau, AR team investigated Berlin Airport, and Moradau was left under M4 and RO's guard. However, M4 convinced RO to allow her to be alone with Moradau, making it the proper talk she meant to have with her. RO only overheard M4 say she would fulfill Moradau's wish before she was taken down by a neurocloud attack, and Moradau seized a helicopter to kidnap the unconscious M4 and bring her to Father. She was stopped by M16A1, who returned M4 and Moradau to the commander, though she cryptically warned that she was not the true M4. When she awakened days later, Dandelion had taken back control of the body and had no information regarding M4's whereabouts. After escaping the commander and returning to Paradius, Moradau used what she had learned of M4's true nature to make up for her mistakes to William. M4 and AR team nominally participated in the defense of Griffin Base SO9 during the fireworks incident when Persica took remote control of the team's dummies. Key. Back in Tarot Paradise, M4 realized that her intervention through Lunasia had only slightly extended the commander's life thread. To create a world line where AR team and the commander all survived, M4 accepted to abandon her own life and memories to make Lunasia complete. AR team also willingly sacrificed themselves to complete the fusion. Before disappearing, M4 made Lunasia promise to carry on the wishes of her loved ones. Lunasia and M4's situation is similar to Angelia and RPK 16's. Eliza, you never hesitate to save others. What bothers you is the sacrifices that others make for you. You only ever step into the darkness yourself so that everyone else can bask in the light. M4A1, what's wrong with that? Eliza, I'm just trying to tell you, magic that creates miracles always comes at a price. They've helped you with part of that price, and it'll be up to you to pay off the rest. They didn't sacrifice themselves for you. Rather, they chose to make a stand together with you. A special dandelion sprite with M4's eyes appears in the special chapter Alaya Vinana at the end of Poincare Recurrence. After the completion of Coronation Storm and the full resurrection of Lunasia as a relic key during the Battle of Frankfurt, M4 was part of the Gestalt mind operating her body, or vessel, along with the original Lunasia, Eliza, Dandelion, and other entities. So at this point, M4's body is still present, but her mind is this conglomeration of herself, the original Lunasia, Eliza, and Dandelion, and I guess all these other Nidos that Dandelion had previously absorbed. Each part of the Gestalt mind had a different goal, but M4's and Lunasia's were completely opposed. Because remember, Lunasia, she wanted to use the relics to destroy mankind, while M4 wanted to save the commander. They decided to make a bet on whether the commander would be swayed in their ideals and betray their ally Nele when confronted with visions of other worlds where they became enemies. Because remember, in this other timeline that the air team come from, their M4 and commander had died at Frankfurt. And just reading on the implications here, it's likely that Nele had been the one maybe that betrayed him and was the one that killed him. But after showing him these visions, the commander honored their trust in Nele. And so, M4 won the bet and seized control of the vessel. To ensure the original Lunasia wouldn't complete her objective, M4 needed to destroy the vessel so that the Gestalt Lunasia couldn't use relics in the future. Lunasia was happy that she could fulfill her goal and asked the commander to indulge her for the last time and go for a walk with her. They hijacked a German tank and broke into the White Zone. The commander disappeared and the vessel destroyed in the tank's explosion. It is believed that M4 lives on as part of the Gestalt mind of Lunasia in Nirvana. So, that kind of takes care of the M4A1 side of the wiki. Let's hop back over to Lunasia's and finish that off. There, again, like the other articles, there will be a little bit of overlap, but I think this will really kind of put that last good bit of icing on the cake. So, we'll start with Awakening here. After using the starfish to cause a reverse collapse during the Poldinsky incident in 2064, M1 was transported to Tarot Paradise and captured by the entity calling itself Laplace's Demon, which a quick note there, which I like personally, is that Laplace's Demon is an actual theory that essentially says that everything in the universe can be known because everything in the universe is composed of atoms. And if you were to know the specific physical location of every single atom in the universe, you could use calculations to determine the interaction between every single atom and thus essentially be omnipotent, because you would know the location of every atom and thus would be able to know every situation and every possible situation by the interaction of those elements. But anyway, so this entity captured by the entity calling itself Laplace's Demon, whose ultimate goal was to make Lunasia complete by having M4 merge with her. Under the guise of Martini Henry, who was the maid of the Oberstein family, Laplace had M4A1 live through memories of Lunasia's family, convincing her that her life as M4A1 was a delusion that she used to escape her final responsibility, to create a world without violence and pain by destroying the current world. She then convinced her to sacrifice the other entities captured in Tarot Paradise, including M16, as well as the other members of AR Team arrived from another world line, saying that their sacrifice would grant her the power to accomplish her destiny. Though Laplace's minions in charge of herding the sacrifices schemed against each other, their plan to let AR Team reach M4 in hopes that they would willingly sacrifice themselves for the sake of turning her into Lunasia would prove to be right. M16 failed to bring M4 back to her senses, while Eliza encouraged her to become Lunasia. Eliza also claimed that Lunasia was a constant between world lines. M4 eventually returned to her senses, and Laplace's identity was revealed when M16 used her power as the Wheel of Fortune on them. Talking through M4, the actual, still incomplete Lunasia commanded AR Team to kill Laplace for taking over Tarot Paradise. When Laplace's demon sacrificed the last of her power, M4 was brought in contact with Lunasia, who commanded her to accept her death and merge back with her for the sake of the world. The incomplete Lunasia admitted that she lacked emotions and that there was no meaning to saving the world unless she acquired them by merging with M4. Lunasia demonstrated her ability to perceive and influence causality by showing to M4 that the commander and AR Team were fated to be killed by Moradau and Narcissus in Germany, and offered M4 to merge temporarily so she could save them without making a final decision to sacrifice herself. Lunasia's powers enabled M4 to save AR Team and the commander and help them for a short time during the chase for the ISO's boxes, which is where we read about Maculin and all that stuff. During this time, M4 and Lunasia expressed an interest in saving the captive Moradau. During a private encounter, she agreed to fulfill Mardal's wish, leaving her in possession of one of Lunasia's memories, while she visited William in a garden during the exile imposed by their father and apologized that her feebleness was keeping William from his research. Mardal later claimed to William that she knew how to contact Lunasia again, and he rewarded her. M4 returned to Terra Paradise after her encounter with Mordal, but realized the commander's life thread had only been slightly extended, so M4 made the decision to merge with Lunasia in order to create a world line where all of her loved ones would survive, and the rest of AR Team sacrificed themselves to grant M4 the power necessary to complete the merge. M4A1. Promise me, when I lose and forget everything, when I no longer remember the wishes that everyone has entrusted to me, you will carry them and keep going in my stead. You will help me make our wishes come true. Lunasia, we have a deal. The apparently complete Lunasia awakened in the Lake of Cognition, connected to the Evangel axis in Avernus. Shortly after, Dandelion accessed the Lake of Cognition during Operation Morametz, and Lunasia left her with a cryptic message. Only through connection did I finally understand that I could never become her, whom others looked forward to. But if she chooses to accept our everything and abandon her hopes of becoming perfect, that too is what I desire. The flowers of despair are about to bloom. There is little time left. The encounter left Dandelion in a sort of dream state, and she later warned Irma that she would soon hear it, like her, after reaching the depths of the Lake of Cognition, and would then have to hand over something to her. Lunasia's name appeared on a fountain located... This is where it does get a little confusing, but we'll just power through it. Lunasia's name appeared on a fountain located at the core of the Summer Garden virtual space created by Arthur Hume, along with another fountain labeled Nadia. When Irma and Steven's M520 accessed the fountains after damaging the Summer Garden, only Nadia's fountain was active and they didn't interact with Lunasia's fountain. According to the collection of Irma's lost memories, the complete Lunasia was one of the three entities, alongside the false Nadia and the future Irma, who could reach the heaven sought by the Nidos. Nadia and Lunasia's fountains were included in the remains of the Summer Garden that Irma gave to Dandelion before Irma sealed her own fountain. Battle of Frankfurt. After the destruction of Avernus and the capture of William, Lunasia abducted her brother, the commander, and Dandelion from the Elmo, teleporting them to Frankfurt, where she gained physical form by using Dandelion's body. However, William still didn't consider her perfected due to the memories and personalities of M4A1 and Dandelion being intermixed with Lunasia's. He tasked the rejected Lunasia with guarding the commander, kept prisoner in a residential house of Frankfurt's underground white zone. The commander commented that she had M4's eye color, but that her face looked too baleful, and she also admitted that she lacked a sense of smell. While she obediently followed her brother Bill's order, the intermixing of personalities made Lunasia act unstable towards the commander, displaying at the same time affection, teasing, and cruelty in her actions. The commander tested her limits, forcing her to admit her flaws, to the point that she threatened to cut their throat with a knife, but in the end couldn't do it, influenced by M4's promise. Since William had already achieved his goal and no longer needed the commander as a bargaining chip, Lunasia allowed them to leave, but they abducted her instead, intent on saving M4 and Dandelion. Lunasia attempted to recruit them into Paradius by claiming they could resurrect Maculan, the death that haunted Commander the most, which is why, initially when I was reading this first time, that was when I officially went and read the Maculan post, but now we know why. You know, this semi-immune human that ended up being killed. Lunasia developed a fascination for the commander and their ideals during this time. Soon after, she was contacted in Nirvana by an entity of unclear nature who warned her that access to Nirvana didn't make her omnipotent and that the commander's ultimate fate in Frankfurt would still be decided by the actions of people of the physical world, resulting in their death in the majority of world lines. Deciding to save the commander, Lunasia started setting up events to reach the conclusion that she wanted. It is probable that Dandelion's return and the help that she provided the commander by using a limited ability to perceive alternate timelines was arranged by Lunasia. Dandelion later claimed that her return was proof that Lunasia had accepted the world instead of trying to destroy it and was now opposing William. Under XM556's custody, Lunasia's health started to fail and she dreamed of her past in an Evangel portal. Connecting physically to Anito to speak with William, she was again rejected on the grounds of her missing memories and different personality, but renewed his promise to resurrect her. In the final stage of the experiment, Laplace forced Lunasia to manifest in a test subject and reconfirmed the violent actions that she had taken at Evangel Portal and forgotten. After returning to her own body, Lunasia demanded to speak with the commander, threatening suicide. XM556 brought her to a car to drive her to the Elmo, but Lunasia deactivated her to go back to William after discovering Frankfurt, the sacrificial altar of her true resurrection, through the death of its inhabitants. Meanwhile, the commander and the Stasi disrupted the transfer of Laplace and Lunasia's final vessel, her cocoon, in the form of a young girl's body, Avernus C. Hella, to the White Zone. Drawing from the nature of Daybreak Squad, an earlier creation of Laplace, Amaris qualified the cocoon as an impurity that gathers all energy, as opposed to a place of energy extraction. Though Lunasia had already awoken, she still needed to link the Lake of Cognition to the cocoon as the last key after Irma and Nadia's disappearance. William finished the surgery shortly before the commander's arrival, but he was knocked out by an explosion before Lunasia awakened from anesthesia. In certain timelines, William's surgery failed and Lunasia was unable to save the commander later, which obviously would lead to his death. According to Moradal, this Lunasia was acting as an imposter like her. She didn't hold any interest in William or consider herself his sister, only seeing herself as the key to the relics. Lunasia described herself as a figure woven with illusions and lies, as a fake holy maiden. Accordingly, when the commander's troops invaded William's hideout in the White Zone and beat the Nidos, Moradal asked Lunasia to honor the promise she made when she was under M4's custody and make her immortal, but Lunasia said she didn't remember any promise and killed Moradal. When meeting the commander, she presented herself as the true master of Laplace's demon, the key to the relics linking the physical world to the other world, Nirvana, and a godly existence. However, this Lunasia still existed as a gestalt mind, mixing the personalities and memories of M4A1, Lunasia, Eliza, Dandelion, and other entities, all possessing their own goals to accomplish with their newfound powers. M4 and Lunasia's goals, in particular, were opposite, since Lunasia wanted to destroy the world while M4 wanted to save the commander. They made a wager to decide who would seize the spindle of fate, betting on the commander's ideal. Lunasia explained that she carried the memories of M4A1, Dandelion, Lunasia von Oberstein, and many other consciousness. She related the story of Lunasia von Oberstein in order to explain how the title of William passed between people. She then revealed that in most timelines, Nelle became William and suggested that the commander should kill her in order to truly bring an end to William's threat. The commander refused, since they had already verified that Nelle had rejected this path. With this answer, M4 won the wager and assumed control over Lunasia's body. M4 planned to use the sealing key left by Irma to rescind her status as a relic key, which would make this world objective reality. M4 warned the commander that killing William at this point in time would only lead to their premature death, and invited them to spend some last moments together. They boarded a German tank and broke into the White Zone before being stopped by a powerful explosion of unclear nature. The commander was wounded but exited the tank, abandoning their coat, while reaching for safety in the Cold War-era bunker network of Frankfurt. Parts from an advanced doll frame of unknown origins were left inside the tank. Lunasia's body was acquired by William. A few days later, the commander's forces, including a version of Dandelion separate from Lunasia, resumed operations against William. Lunasia, manifesting through Anito, called William on the phone and asked him to abandon his murderous projects, but he refused to abandon Lunasia's original ambition. William considered the previous surgery was another failure since he had still failed to separate his sister's mind from the other personalities. He performed surgery on Dandelion's body again, and this time managed to create a perfected Lunasia, holding only the memories that William needed to ensure her complete devotion to him. When the commander and Dandelion arrived to assassinate him, William used Lunasia, equipped with nanodrome armaments, to serve as his bodyguard. Dandelion pointed out, similarly to Shaw's vision for Task Force Defy, that the perfect version of Lunasia was actually the previous one, because she had the ability to choose, and in fact chose to refuse to use her godly abilities to remake the world, instead working towards her own objectives, while William's perfected version had no ability to make her own choices. Dandelion claimed that she herself was the proof that Lunasia accepted this world, while this fake Lunasia was only a tool used by William to justify his rejection of it. The fake Lunasia was bested, and the objective of the real Lunasia was completed after the commander killed William and left Frankfurt alive. The entity that contacted Dandelion 10 years later in 2074 so that she would arrange events to motivate the commander to put their life on the line for the sake of the world again is likely Lunasia herself. The loosely canon setting of Girls Frontline Fire Control involves Lunasia training projections of the Commander T-Doll and Nirvana to form an elite transdimensional team called Chrono Squad. That covers most of that, pretty much is the rest of it there. Hopefully, this is a super long video, even as I'm recording it. It's over 3 hours. I don't think I'm going to have to make many edits because I'm just reading most of it, and most of the edits are going to be restarting paragraphs. So it's probably a 3-hour video. If you've managed to sit through it, I hope that you got a lot out of it. It made me super excited. It made me question a few things. Reading again, I don't know. These are just theories that may change as we go, but it makes me wonder, because, it read that, and I don't know, maybe this was like she wanted to, but she didn't. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it sounded like at some point M4, with this sacrifice from AR team, did actually consolidate and create this new world. And I wonder if that's why there was this random agreement in Girls Frontline 2 that so mysteriously took the commander away from everybody. Because that's one of the things that we hear a lot, is this whole idea of, like, oh, you essentially left just out of nowhere and didn't say anything. And so I wonder if this new world that she created, if this was like a blink in time, essentially, and this is where this new world picked up. But I don't know. You tell me what you think. Did you get a lot out of it? Did you learn a lot? Did it just remind you of a lot of stuff? Do you think that this new world that we're in is a new world, or is it just the same one and we're going to get filled in later on? I look forward to finding out with you guys.